You're watching Force 13's live streaming service. This is Force 13 Live. Good afternoon or evening or even morning maybe in some places. Still this Monday, September 3rd, 2018. We're looking at Tropical Storm Gordon on our sites right now. It became a tropical storm this morning as it's been passing through the southern part of Florida. And no doubt we will be talking a lot about this. Hurricane watches are in effect for parts of Louisiana extending eastwards, I believe. I'll get the actual details on those for you shortly, but we are joined in this hour by our team consisting of quite a few people right now, as you'd expect. Who shall we begin with? I don't know. Let's begin with Strat. Strat, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, how's it going? Pretty interesting situation today. We got multiple active storms right now, I think 5. Gordon, of course, probably going to be the focus of the stream.
You're looking at a webcam
right now. Yeah, this is a webcam in Miami right now. Obviously, overcast, rain, gusty winds for sure. It's definitely going to be in the area of tropical storm force winds right now, potentially.
Yep. We're also joined by Hank. Good afternoon, Hank.
Hello.
It's been a short while since you were last here, but we always enjoy your company. And how have you been thinking of Gordon today?
It's a storm that we really need to pay attention to for obvious reasons, but for now, I mean, threat to the Gulf of Mexico, especially coastlines of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama. It's definitely present. Not going to be the biggest storm I've ever seen, but something that everybody needs to be vigilant of, just in case it goes over just in case the intensity goes higher than forecast, which is definitely possible with the small core that the storm currently has.
Indeed. We've also got Orlando with us. Hello? Oh, he's gone. We've also got Leighton, who's showing us the radar scope right now as well.
Hello.
And I didn't actually ask how you'd like to be referred to, but you go by the name of Gwyneth on here.
Yes. Yeah, Gwyneth is fine.
How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Alright, and you've been tracking this storm as well. What are your thoughts?
Well, obviously, like the other said, it's a situation that's developing right now, and we need to pay close attention to it. Whether it does go Category 1 status or not, still could impact the Gulf Coast.
We'll get into the nitty-gritty of the forecast a little bit later, but just want to reiterate, if you've missed it, the latest watches and warnings. Don't forget now, they also do storm surge watches and warnings as well, and they appear first here. So a storm surge warning has been issued from Shell Beach to the Mississippi-Alabama border, a storm surge watch for west of Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River, and east of the Mississippi-Alabama border to Navarre. A hurricane watch is in effect for the mouth of the Pearl River to the Alabama-Florida border, and a tropical storm warning, which is probably the most important one at this time, is in effect for Golden Beach to Bonita Beach, Craig Key to Ocean Reef, including Florida Bay, and Okaloosa, Walton County line westward to east of Morgan City, Louisiana, including Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas. And we'll have a visual on the latest National Hurricane Center tracking map here, I think. Yes, there it is, visually speaking, where the storm's expected to go. Somewhat fast moving. 16 miles per hour now.
Yeah, 16 mile an hour. It's moving at a pretty good clip, especially for a storm that's just recently formed. Now, that's another kind of a reason why the north side is so much more active than the southern side, per se. That there's less time to prepare for those along the North Gulf Coast. Now, recently, storms that have been impacting the North Gulf Coast in recent years have been moving pretty quick. Nate comes to mind, moving really fast in the Gulf Coast. This won't be quite as fast, but you still have limited time to prepare, especially considering that the storm could easily get a lot stronger than forecast. Current forecast peak is about 70 miles an hour at last check. It could easily get to a hurricane strength, but at this point, let's just kind of focus on other different tasks right now. And then we also need to recognize that even though it is just a tropical storm, it's going to be a big rainmaker, regardless of its actual intensity. Last time I checked, the models and the WPC saying about 5-ish inches of rain, which isn't biblical, but it's still enough to cause some pretty significant flood problems in the area.
Would you agree with that assessment, that number, 5 inches?
I don't know. I think it's probably going to be moving a bit too fast for that to actually come to fruition. But it's easily possible that if you're stuck in a training rain band, you can get totals that high or potentially even higher.
Just looking at the National Hurricane Center's website, just about that storm surge, which could also be a threat as well. Shell Beach to the Mississippi-Alabama border expecting 3 to 5 feet. Navarre, Florida to the Mississippi-Alabama border 2 to 4 feet. Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River 2 to 4 feet. And the mouth of the Mississippi River to the Louisiana-Texas border 1 to 2 feet, even there.
Yeah.
And rainfall, they're saying on the NHC, they're actually saying isolated maximum amounts of up to 8 inches are possible over southern Florida, but generally 2 to 4.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking you might actually see some more rainfall, a bit more inland once the storm makes landfall. It's supposed to slow down between days 3 to 5.
Yeah, they have a bit of more of a 6-inch bullseye over northern Louisiana and even into northeastern Texas.
Yes, and already there's flash flood watches out in Louisiana and in various other areas near there. There was another system just to the west of there, and it's still sort of lingering on the border with Louisiana and Texas, hasn't there? And do you think that prelude could become a problem if Gordon reaches the same area?
Well, I mean, it's definitely moisturizing the ground, but I don't really think that's likely that Gordon moves that far west anymore. Yesterday in my update, I did say that's possible. Models are kind of backed off on that solution. It's pretty confident that's going to move in on the Mississippi Gulf Coast or even in southeastern Louisiana near the Mississippi River Delta. So I don't think that anything there is likely. And considering that most of the activity is based on the north and east of the center, I don't really think too much rainfall in that area that's been really having a lot of rainfall recently is of huge concern, at least in my eyes. But of course, any deviation in the track could change that opinion pretty quick.
Just going to read out some flood advisories. Central Miami-Dade County has one right now. That's until 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Obviously, due to the heavy rain and thunderstorms, there could be minor flooding in the advisory area, and the 2 inches have already fallen. That doesn't include Miami itself. It does include South Miami and Homestead and a few other locations near there. So that is an advisory, not a warning as yet, and a flood watch also until this evening for parts of South Florida, Broward, Collier, and Miami-Dade counties. So a large area there. And looking further north, I think there's some flood warnings over in central Florida as well. Some places that quite often get flood warnings, I've noticed over the past years whilst we've been watching storms in this area. Flood warning extended for the following rivers in Florida: the Withlacoochee at Trilby, Miaka River at Miaka River State Park, Peace River at Zolfo Springs and at Arcadia. Flood warning there, and for Cypress Creek at Worthington Gardens. So flood warnings continue there. I think that's all of them. There's a lot of repeated information that I'm just sifting through here. Yeah, that's all in Central Florida at this time. There's also, you may not be surprised to hear, some special marine warnings just off the eastern coast there as well, from pretty much Fort Pierce to beyond, just to Cape Canaveral actually. So quite a large swathe of the eastern coast of Florida just offshore. Some thunderstorms pushing in.
I'd like to just mention in terms of rainfall, National Hurricane Center does give a little note that even though right now we see on the rainfall map with that little pocket of 6 inches, they do say that there may be 8 inches plus in parts of southern Mississippi and Louisiana. So we could see a bit more than what they're really saying right now. So, and along with storm surge, that can provide some really rough conditions.
And we're looking at it on the radar here. What can we summarize looking at this?
The storm's moving generally to the north or west.
You can quite clearly see where its center is.
It's in here. This is the center right here. This is a lot of circulation.
That's just off Marco Island, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Marco Island.
It's looking rather impressive for such a weak storm. No doubt it's probably organising pretty quickly. Looking at radar data, I'd say right now the intent is 50. There has been a tropical storm force wind report shortly before we went live actually from Collier, Florida. Wind gusts of 39 miles an hour.
Yeah. If you've got any comments or questions for us whilst we're on the air, do send a message. Viewer interaction makes half the show. And we're also running a poll as well. Do you think Helene will form this week? And maybe we'll speculate a bit about whether that may be the case or not. You can participate in that poll on our community page on the Force 13 YouTube channel. There's already been 37 votes. 81% say yes at the minute, so that's quite resounding at present.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. In my eyes.
Yeah.
Though, if I could actually pull up this imagery really quick, I have a wide shot of the entire Atlantic right here.
I was going to go into Florence next, just briefly too, so you may as well talk about that whilst we're looking at these images.
Alright, so I guess I'll zoom into the main development region. So here we have both Florence out here, and then our other wave, which has, I believe, now a 30% chance of development in the next 5 days, so that might be increased soon. Models have been pretty generous with this thing so far. But Florence out here is actually 65-mile-an-hour tropical storm, and it did intensify. But it does look like it's kind of beginning to degrade in these last few frames. You can see that the convection is starting to the center is starting to outrun the convection. And as it continues towards the west, that might be a general pattern. It probably 65 mile an hour might be what it peaks at for now.
Yeah, I believe it by the.
Yeah, but by the time that by the time it goes all the way into further onto the Atlantic, in fact, all the way into this general region right here, it should be able to find an area that might have a bit more favorable conditions. Now, that's if it can stay weak like this. If it stays weak like something like the Euro is predicting, then it could end up in this general area over here and could really get going. But if it stays stronger like the GFS model, the American model is suggesting, then it'll stay further north and it'll probably end up curving out to sea. So, and of course, curving out to sea would be the better solution for land areas. But if the Euro solution is anything to go by, it might try and stay a bit farther south than the rest of the models are saying, and that would be worst news. Now, will it be far south enough to impact the Leeward Islands? Very unlikely, and if it were, it would probably be a wave if it be that far south. But if anything, anywhere it goes, you just need to keep a wary eye on it. Now, again, look how far away it is from North America and the Caribbean. It's not an imminent threat. And unlike Gordon, which is literally
Hank, it feels like this is going to be the storm that it's going to feel like forever for us to know actually where it's going to go. It's the one we're going to perpetually argue about. Does anyone have any thoughts about where the track is most likely to lead it?
I feel like the current 5-day forecast is.
I personally think I'm not sure it'd be I don't expect it to hit land much.
That's Chap in the background. I don't think we've introduced you yet. And it doesn't sound like the signal's very good wherever you are.
I was going to say, in terms of the track, I feel like the 5 days kind of something you can say works out to some extent. It's basically right in the middle of what the models are saying. It might be a bit further north, though, because it did unexpectedly intensify more than we were expecting, really. We thought it could potentially weaken from yesterday to today, but it really got its act together. Although weakening is still anticipated at this point from the National Hurricane Center, and it still is in pretty hostile conditions. It's going to be entering higher shear, drier air, and still not very warm waters either, so weakening could happen as it enters over 20 knots of wind shear. And until we get towards day 5 and it enters more favorable conditions, how weak it gets in the next couple days really determines what its threat could be down the road.
Yeah, because if you have a weaker storm, then that means its extent doesn't extend as far up into the troposphere, which means any upper level steering patterns, like say a trough that may dip down over the Atlantic, won't have as much influence to actually pick it up and curve it out to sea. Instead, it's going to rely more on the surface flow, the easterly trade flow, and continue moving towards the west, towards basically land areas. But the caveat is that it will be weaker as a result. So a major hurricane threatening the Leeward Islands, say another Irma, no, that's not happening with Florence. I know it's been kind of a hot topic recently, but that's not the case with the storm.
The amount of comparisons. And we'll see another comparisons with Gordon. Leighton, I'll be on with you in just a moment, but I just want to draw people's attention to the other feature that we're looking at today, or tonight if you're in Japan, because that's Typhoon Jebi. You can see it on the 3 panels here, and you can see that it is still fighting as it moves towards Japan. We're not going to discuss it that much in this first hour because it is the middle of the night over there, and I don't think many people will be particularly wary of it, although we are covering it here. You can see it moving off towards the north-northeast. It's going to strike probably within 24 hours, maybe later on throughout the day, possibly in the evening, who knows, when it's going to strike the eastern coast of Shikoku or possibly the Kansai region near Osaka, which is now at 96% tropical storm chance. So that clearly is going to happen there. Any quick thoughts on Jebi?
It weakened more than we anticipated.
Yeah, it looks a lot worse now.
Models, a few of them still indicate that there might be some re-intensification right before landfall. It is still in pretty favorable conditions at this point.
But at this point, I feel like it's unlikely.
And there we are back with our views of everywhere, the Western Pacific, the Eastern Pacific, and the Atlantic. And I don't know if you guys want to mention the East Pac as well, because we've got Norman and Olivia. Olivia's larger than Norman by the looks of things.
Yeah, it does seem like it's larger.
Olivia's really gotten its act together recently. I mean, yesterday, the past 3 days, it's been very weak, elongated center, and just, the forecast models were just going down and down and down and down. And now it's actually getting its act together, so it's possible that it actually could get to some of those. I wouldn't say the early model predictions, because there are some really early predictions saying it was going to get to like Cat 4. I highly doubt that now, but it could easily become Hurricane Cat 2 maybe. Norman, if you're in Hawaii and you worry about the storm, don't. It's gonna pass way to the north of you guys.
Percentage chances rose today.
By how much?
Last night we were looking at 6%, now it's 10% for Hilo.
Well, that's because it's closer, so I wouldn't say it's any big indication. I mean, swells, yeah, that's it, basically.
I'm not wish casting for Hawaii, I'm just saying that it is 10%.
I mean, small chance, but there's always possibility of it getting closer and that thing rising.
Yeah, either way, Olivia won't be impacting land, and any impacts to Hawaii are A, highly unlikely, and B, like 2 weeks out, so don't worry.
About 5 days or so.
Yeah, it was an exaggeration.
I'm just trying to show these latest images if they start working properly. Doesn't look like they will, but you can just about make out those 2 hurricanes there as well. Very interesting.
Olivia's really expanded in size. Let's see. I might be able to pull up some infrared for you quickly.
Right, before you do that, let's talk to Leighton. I think you wanted to say something earlier.
Yeah, a severe thunderstorm warning was issued for I can't even pronounce that. Osceola County, Florida.
Uh-oh. Looks like I'll need to help him.
I probably just butchered that.
In Florida
yes.
somewhere, right?
Osceola? I can't pronounce it. I'm useless with American place names.
Yep, there's actually, I think there's... Is there two?
No, it's just one.
No, there's another marine advisory out. Yeah, severe thunderstorm warning for northwestern Osceola County in east central Florida.
What is that new tropical
Now, those locations include Kissimmee, St. Cloud, Bay Lake, Intercession City, and Celebration. So that's in central Florida.
Yeah. That expires in 25 minutes. But I think I might put that up to a tornado warning, because looking at it, it does look like there's some rotation in it.
Alright, so there's
an eye
one. There's also all kinds of rip current statements out there as well, unsurprisingly.
And since we've gone live, the radar imagery at the low level circulation of Gordon has just improved so rapidly.
Hasn't it? Have you seen this, guys?
Yeah, the radar is looking very impressive. I mean, you
I
don't
can
really
play the
see it
loop
on...
and show you just how much it's improved in the last hour or so.
You don't really see it on IR visible, but on the radar...
Look how much that's improved over the last hour.
You have an eye on radar, which is really, odd.
It's not closed, but it's sort of like a banded eye. It's not closed off, though.
It's not something you'd really expect to see with a storm that's about 50 miles an hour or so.
Yeah.
But it is notable that this is displaced from the core of the main convection, which is still over southeast Florida.
Yes.
And there's lots of it.
Yeah. In fact, if I zoom out, I could actually show you that eastern band. The feeder bands coming in, which are feeding the centre of circulation, obviously. There's special marine warnings along pretty much the whole of the eastern side of this thing.
And I can quickly just share my Google Chrome just so we can get a close-up on the IR shot of the larger region.
At about what time?
Who's that? I've no idea. The signal sounds very poor, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still heavier bands coming in through southeast Florida right now and over the north.
Yeah, that'll be the feeder bands. It's drawing moisture from the mountains of Cuba.
It looks like at the last frames we have a burst of convection developing over the center as well.
Yes, it's even more...
Yeah.
It's just as noticeable on the visible that we're looking at here. I don't know if you're able to see this strap, but it's looking... A massive plume has just exploded over the center of the storm as we've seen.
You can see that in the visible. Really blowing up. That might be an indication of intensification with the system. You have the 1 minute imagery, and it's, that shows it even more noticeable than this, than, other satellite imagery.
Yep, that's what we're looking at right now. This is the latest on Tropical Storm Gordon. If you have any questions, we will take them. Let's see if there's any now. Do you guys think Gordon will become a hurricane? The HWRF says it will be a Category 2. Well, we'll be doing models a little bit later on, I'm guessing, but I don't know if you have a thought on that right now.
I think it would.
I mean, I feel like with this really small inner core and how well organized it already is, I think it's probable at this point.
Yeah.
I think
I wouldn't be surprised to see. I wouldn't be surprised to see the latest NHC update later this afternoon. Put it up to hurricane strength in the forecast.
Yeah.
Right now, the peak expected from them is 70 miles an hour, so just a tiny nudge upwards would make them expect it to become a hurricane.
The
Exactly.
tends to do that a lot. When they're uncertain.
I personally would say that it would probably be borderline Category 1, maybe slightly higher.
some models really pick it up on intensity, like the HWRF, but you have other models, the GFS hardly picks up on its existence.
Yeah, the GFS has done a pretty poor job in initializing this storm.
Even on the 12,
I mean,
it doesn't
On
have
every
it at
storm
the
this
low.
year.
Yeah. Even on the 12,
Yeah,
it
it's
doesn't have it.
no.
What has happened to the GFS model?
I don't know. That is a very good question.
Since like last
It's just-
year, it's been off a little bit.
Oh, I don't even.
It's
pay
just having a
attention
hard
to
time
it.
actually picking up the actual center, and I don't understand. Well, I don't really know why, because every other model is doing it pretty well. For whatever reason, GFS is just not having it with Gordon, but it is having it a lot with Florence, and I don't get that at all. But you know what? Whatever. I mean, the Euro is doing a much better job at initializing this. The freaking Nav Gem is doing a better job initializing this. So, and Nav Gem is basically the
Okay.
worst. It's one of the worst
I know.
performing models out there. So.
Someone's
Yay.
asking for tornado threat with Gordon right now.
Well, we've got a severe thunderstorm warning out there right now, and that could, as Leighton said just before, could be a tornado threat as we speak.
The rotation
what-
has died down in that since I said that. So
What are
Okay,
the
then.
impacts of that?
I'll keep an eye on it anyway.
Wait, what are the impacts of that severe thunderstorm warning, actually?
60-mile-an-hour winds and 1-inch hail, if I remember correctly.
1 inch hail?
Oh, sorry, 3/4-inch hail and 60-mile-an-hour winds.
I was just looking for some more questions. They're just more about Gordon and whether it will reach hurricane status. So, let's see here. Jeremiah says, from looking at the radar over Florida, some of those bands look to have rotation in them. And what do you think a tornado is likely? We've just discussed that one as well. Looking at the big picture there, Leighton, any other areas that you might want to earmark for potential tornadoes?
Mainly the eastern band offshore of the east coast of Florida, which pretty much, as you can see, does have special marine warnings already. That's the main area right now, because that's where the strongest storms are. And of course, that severe warning.
Yeah, they're just towing the line of Miami right now, it seems, really.
Oh my god, look at the low level circulation on the latest frame.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
It's
the
literally
radar
clearing it
shows-
out right now.
Yeah, the radar shows a cleared out eye. Of course, we don't really see that high up on satellite imagery because we have such
It
huge
would be a
plume of convection.
mid-level eye. It would be a mid-level eye, I think.
Potentially. It's just, it's completely clouded over with this huge burst
Yeah.
of convection that we've seen.
I mean, that's normal. You don't really see eyes. Radar doesn't really reflect anything that goes on with the actual eye very well, because I mean, the convective structure doesn't always correlate with what you see on radar. Not all the time, at least.
Well, I'd say at the very least our expectations for this storm have gone up since yesterday.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Will it keep doing that? That's the real question.
Most of us were really discounting the potential for a hurricane from this system yesterday. It seems like this has changed for us.
I think it was the opposite. I think too many of us were overhyping this.
Yeah.
There's a new special marine warning. I'm gonna swap so I can see it.
A new marine warning.
Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
Yes, that one was out when we last looked at that warning. Oh no, you're looking at further north now.
I should be able to see the severe from here as well. I think it's on the same radar.
I'd also like to note there is Recon in the storm right now. It's just the problem with it is that it can't catch the highest winds because they're over land, and laws prevent these Recon planes from going over land. Although it does look like it's going to get a second pass over the center of the storm, and I'm really interested to see what it might show.
In terms of pressure, certainly.
Yeah. I don't really know if the strongest winds might be there at all.
The
because-
strongest winds are currently over like Miami.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're displaced to the east of the center right now, but it's going to be interesting to see if the pressure's dropped at all.
Has anything happened on that? I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's special marine warnings in between radar sites, so I'm kind of struggling to get a sight on it.
Yeah. Has anything
gonna try
happened
to
on
find
the
some-
Miami webcam?
Let me take a look for you guys quickly. I'll pull up my
I was about to ask
screen
that.
share. Nothing too interesting happening. I'll try to pull up a street view one in just a little bit for you guys. So, but still really overcast. You can see the rain falling onto the camera actually. But I'll see if I can pull up a ground
there
level
it
one.
is.
I could probably get it pretty quickly, but this is the current webcam. This is courtesy of Vira Wireless. This is actually publicly available on YouTube Live if you guys want to try to find it. But this is some of the scenes we're seeing from Miami right now.
Indeed, and it's a developing situation as the storm continues to graze the southwestern coast, very close to Marco
Yeah,
Island.
it's probably about 15 miles offshore.
I'd think it'd be less than that.
Isn't that where Irma made landfall? And
Marco
Yeah.
Island
Too
is the
much.
second landfall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Irma
I
made
have
landfall on
a-
Marco Island.
I have a live webcam right here, street view, and it is pretty windy down there, and you can see a lot of water being pushed around on the ground level.
Yeah, they're in that eastern band.
Yep, you don't really
yeah, I
see
can tell.
very heavy rain. There's still people out, but it's definitely
Mhm.
pretty windy, and definitely a good amount of rain that's been pushed around on the ground as well.
Looks a lot like the storm I was in when I was there in 2014.
which storm was that actually?
It was just a random storm, a thunderstorm.
Ah.
But yeah, it was very curious. I don't know how they go about because there was just an afternoon thunderstorm on the interstate, and there was 4 car accidents in the space of a mile. So I don't know how they're doing on a day like today.
Hopefully better.
Radar currently saying between
And,
between 50 and 60 mile an hour, depending what conversion rate you use.
and here's just one more webcam of Dania Beach Pier. Definitely
Just a
higher
minute
waves
on
than
that.
what you'd normally see.
Where's that?
This is Dania Beach Pier in Cam. This is also in Miami. It's switching around for multiple cams,
Oh, I
but
see.
definitely rougher oceans. You can also see it's pretty
Oh.
gusty and windy here as well. Not the heaviest rain though, but there definitely is
No,
rain.
we weren't expecting that, and it doesn't look particularly impressive on the infrared in those cloud tops. So it's more blustery winds, and obviously no one should be going anywhere near those waves.
Fortunately, it does seem the area is pretty deserted right
Yeah.
now, so don't see any crazy people out there.
Hopefully not.
Doesn't seem like it for now, but hopefully it stays that way. But it should be like this for most of the day, but by tomorrow conditions should clear out for sure in the area.
I mean, just because it's a weak tropical storm doesn't mean you can go surfing.
Yeah,
Well,
Exactly.
especially because today is Labor Day, there's going to be a lot of people like in the general beach area that are wanting to go out in the water. Yeah, please don't. I mean, for one, there's a tropical storm. You should probably have the brains to know that that's probably not the best idea to go out into the ocean when there's a tropical cyclone literally over you. And 2, you're gonna, if you do get out in the water for whatever reason, there's going to be rip currents, strong rip currents that can pull you out and potentially cause some bigger problems than there would be if you didn't go out there. So just don't do it. I mean, it's dangerous. Bottom line, it's just really dangerous.
Exactly.
So that's literally right next to Fort Lauderdale there.
Yeah, so definitely tumultuous conditions that we're seeing right now. Definitely not very safe to be going out. Like Hank said, Labor Day, but fortunately these cams don't really show anyone at the beach. There was
Yeah.
that one guy. There was that one guy running around in the parking lot, but
Was there?
there was this one guy running around in the parking lot that was visible on the webcam.
Yeah, I
but
saw that.
There's always
hopefully he
one.
hasn't stayed there for long.
Oh, I'll be back.
There's always one. There was, in fact, there was more than one when we were doing our Matthew coverage, and there was one or two during Typhoon Maria last month as well. They were much stronger storms, and because this is a lesser storm, it's actually quite surprising that there aren't more people out, but we obviously don't want to see that.
Well, they might just be inside. That's what we're hoping right now.
I think that's Hank showing us the overview, and we may as well take a look at that because we've not seen it properly in these graphics. And maybe we could have a little chat about that third area of interest.
Yeah, I actually didn't mean to show this, but I guess I am, so that's cool. So, yeah, of course, Gordon over Southwest Florida. Florence, a strong tropical storm, but is likely going to begin weakening pretty soon. If we go to the discussion here, you can see that it does show 70 mile an hour, going up to 70 miles an hour, though I don't really know if that's valid still, considering that it looks like a heaping pile of trash right now. But we'll have to wait and see on that. And then this other area disturbed weather, which has a 0% chance of developing in 48 hours, but 30% in the next 5 days. There should be an update on this one pretty soon. In fact, if I refresh the page, there might be one.
It's gonna happen within the next 20 minutes. We'll probably be able to.
Yeah, not quite. They usually come out around this time, so 30% sure, 40% maybe. Who knows? But yeah, Florence out here again, a very long-range threat, if one at all. I guess the biggest area that should be concerned should be Bermuda, but even then, it wouldn't be an impact, you guys, in a week plus. So, or maybe a week-ish. So, I wouldn't be too concerned about it right now. Just keep an eye on it. Just pay attention to the National Hurricane Center for the latest information on the storm. Don't look at the models if you really don't want to be scared per se, because that can just make the situation even worse if you're actually nervous about the storm, because some models can get overhyped, and some sources out there can use models to dictate their own decisions, which is one, a poor idea, and two, poor miscommunication of the actual situation. So just don't pay attention to that.
And there's a fair warning, we'll be showing our models shortly as well.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of overhyped articles already, and those are obviously not going to be true.
Yeah,
but
you gotta be.
It's also
gotta be wary of the sources that you do choose, because sometimes you'll stumble across something that says, and I'll say literally in all caps, Hurricane Gordon to cause catastrophic damage in Louisiana. All caps, clickbait title on YouTube. So don't click on those videos.
Yeah. Well, Florence, Euros tries to bring it closer to the East Coast, but that's still way far out. GFS has shifted significantly east again.
Should we go and look at them now then, shall we?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead.
I'll start off.
The ECMWF, I already have the page up.
Okay, perfect.
We have videos. Sorry.
Very good. So the ECMWF shows it moving into Louisiana, basically around the mouth of Mississippi, as a moderate to potentially strong tropical storm, and then moving inland and dying. GFS, again, is doing a very poor job of actually initializing the center properly. So you will see that here. It doesn't even develop it into that might be a depression.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's not doing a great job with that. HWRF, I feel like that's Florence. HWRF is doing a better job, I feel. Might be a bit bullish on intensity, but it's doing a pretty good job with track, I feel. In fact, let me put on the winds, that'd probably be more helpful. So here it's showing, actually it's backed off and it's showing a landfall near Dolphin Island in Alabama now. So that's significantly farther west. That's basically a Cat 1 hurricane right there. That's basically what it ground to. And moving inland.
HWRF.
Yeah, and then the HMON, which was pretty weak with it at first, I think isn't the case anymore, though I might be wrong.
It's a little bit stronger, middle of the road, I believe.
Yeah, it's showing a minimal hurricane, basically, and then moving in, that's probably right around, like, Biloxi, Mississippi, and then moving inland. Let's see, let's just go to CMC, because we can.
That's the problem.
There's nothing wrong with it, because it's not showing anything else generating, which is the good news. It's just showing the intensity forecast. Here it's showing,
still
45.
a bit behind the curve there.
Yeah, a little bit. 45 knot tropical storm.
Yeah.
probably be a bit stronger than that if I had to guess. Let's just ignore this crap model, and then the operational GFS. I don't really know if I want to show this because the actual model. Oh, okay, so it's actually showing something. So it actually initializes something. So that's one step of credibility, and then brings it in around the Mississippi-Alabama border, or not Alabama, Louisiana, and then it moves inland after that. For Florence, I'm only going to go out to a week because after that we just get into very murky waters.
Definitely.
The Euro has been doing some interesting things. So here's Florence on the model right here. In fact, let me just zoom in. So here's Florence right here. Shows it weakening quite a bit. Here's the other wave behind it. Actually kind of shows it beginning to elongate a little bit. Might be a dissipation in between those two runs, and then really ramps it up again. And then here's 1 week out. This is the very farthest I'm going to go. 8 days. Again, huge rain of salt with this, showing it not too far from Bermuda. GFS, again, is having a stronger storm, so it's moving farther to the north. As you can see, GFS doesn't weaken it, and instead, in fact, intensifies it over the next 5 days. Don't think that's very plausible, but it does. Then recurves it on out to sea, potentially threatening the Azores in the long term, but that's something else we'll wait to see.
SRG Science wants you to show the mesoscale models.
For Gordon?
I'm guessing so, yeah.
And while you do that,
Right.
just saw questions. Hank, you probably know the answer to this. Someone's asking if Gordon has a similar track to Bonnie 2010.
A little bit.
Yeah, you could say that. Not dissipating in the Gulf, though. Right now, I feel like a very good track analog right now is Isaac of 2012. Maybe as strong as Isaac now.
And I was initially wanting to avoid that comparison, but it's pretty much impossible now.
Yeah, and someone's also asking. Sorry,
one is moving a lot faster,
Crap.
so I guess that's one point
I
off,
think
but
it'll be as strong.
track is pretty similar.
Yeah, and someone's asking if the eye feature that we've seen on radar is an actual eye. I don't know if you guys want to answer that.
It's a mid-level eye feature. It's not really extending down to the surface, I don't believe. So it's a formative sign that one may come and that one may be present when it does make its final landfall along the central Gulf Coast.
It's more of an indication of the low-level center at the moment.
Yeah, so here's those mesoscale models that viewer requested. This is the NAM 12 kilometer, and yeah, this one's showing a general area of just disturbed weather. Not really it's a weak tropical storm, but not really anything that it's probably a bit too weak. The HRR doesn't go up in time far enough. This is the same model. WRF, whatever this is. Admittedly, I don't really have a great handle on these models.
Nor do we.
Yeah, shows it moving into the central Mississippi Gulf Coast as a probably mid-range tropical storm, or like 55 knots. It's fair, and then moving inland. This model, further south than the rest, moving into like Port Fourchon or something like that. Maybe that's a bit farther to the east of Port Fourchon.
It's quite a few of these.
Yeah, there's a lot. I'm just running through these. Yeah, similar situation.
Just had a report of flooding.
And this one doesn't even extend down.
Go ahead.
Just had a report of flooding coming from a National Weather Service employee near Kendale Lakes, Florida. That came in about 15 minutes ago. That's to the west-southwest of Miami.
Guessing that might be... Oh, right, yes, we're seeing it on your map here, right? Has anything changed with the radar structure?
It's definitely still tightening up.
So it is certainly...
It's just getting better on every image.
Yeah. More structure there. More roundedness, I suppose.
I've got the smoothing settings on at the moment. This is the proper imagery. I can toggle it to make it smooth, or But it does definitely look like that core is still improving, and rapidly. There's definitely those higher rain rates looking around the mid-level eye. Zoom out. Yeah, the storm's still pulling moisture off the Cuban mainland to feed itself. That eastern band remains active. There's a flooding occurring on that eastern band now, which really isn't that surprising, to be honest, considering most of the area is flat anyway.
It's fascinating to look at. And that flooding area has been under quite a lot of those oranges in the last few hours.
Yeah, those are the
How long is that loop? How much time does that go over?
I believe it's an hour. 2 hours.
So 2 hours of heavy rainfall for that particular location, and areas to the northwest of it as well.
We're getting some more questions in the chat about tornadoes, if you guys want to go ahead and answer those as well.
Yeah, please.
Not seeing any rotation on the eastern side at the moment. It bears watching, of course, but I'm not seeing anything at the moment. It just it depends on what happens on the eastern side as to what can create those kinds of spin-ups. It really depends on the environment that the storm's moving through. I don't see anything that hints at tornado, at least in the short term.
So hopefully it stays that way, but we still have probably at least another 6 or 7 hours of this convection remaining over mainland Florida at this point.
Probably.
We're zoomed in there now to the upper Keys.
This is the storm
and into the Miami-Dade area there. So that is quite close to Miami.
I'm on the Miami radar side.
And most of the rain has been occurring inland. Not
Yeah.
particularly much on, say, Miami Beach and all points north of there along the coast.
I mean, it depends on where the feeder bands exactly come on shore as to where the activity happens.
The heaviest convection is actually still southeast of Miami, off the waters.
Yeah.
So I think
That special marine warning is encompassing that area.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I thought I saw some warnings on your radar there.
That's a special marine warning. I believe it's flagged for possible water spout. Yeah.
Oh right.
Yeah, it's flagged for water spout, so it's basically a marine tornado warning, if you like.
So we might get some activity out in the open water, but not on land yet.
Yeah, I'm not saying anything on land apart from that heavy rain. That's the main issue.
I just want to butt in really quick. Somebody asked a question about Florence and whether or not it will impact the United States. Again, it's really far out to tell. With
way too far out.
Florence,
yeah.
it's just we should just focus on Gordon right now, which I guess honestly right now, I guess it's still a little murky. Some people looks like there's still some confusion in the chat as to whether or not Florence will be curving or moving straight. So I guess I'll just kind of outline it here. Right here, if that's okay.
Okay.
All right. So out here's Florence. I know I haven't used this exact tool yet. I don't know why.
I've got to interrupt with an update from the National Hurricane Center. They've put it up to 50 miles an hour, 1,007 millibars at the intermediate advisory. No change in the warnings, though.
Yeah, I was kind of expecting that looking at the radar data. It was definitely supporting 50 miles an hour. So I'm not surprised to put it up to 50, to be honest. I'm really not surprised.
Alright, that makes sense.
Yep, so no new warnings, so keep going.
Okay, so this is Gordon, now our moderate tropical storm, 50 miles an hour. And out here is Florence, also a tropical storm. This is just a wave, so ignore this. And then this is another wave moving off the coast right now. Now, the thing with Florence is that if it maintains its strength right now and intensifies, then we'll be able to curve farther to the north and then recurve on out to sea, because this ridge out here that will be building in over this region of the country is currently further down here over North Carolina. But if this area of ridging kind of builds in right here, then a trough, not this one will be kicking out this way, but a trough over here that will be dipping into the Pacific Northwest out here on the next day or so. If that can progress all the way over here, because again, this is long range, then we can have a trough out here that, if Florence is strong enough, then it will extend higher up in the troposphere, and therefore it will feel the effect of this upper trough, and then it will kick it on out to sea. Now, if it's weaker, like the European is suggesting, then it will continue to keep moving towards the west-northwest, maybe not this close to land, maybe something a bit more like this, where it stays weak. And this is a more dangerous situation because, again, long-range talk, but if it's in this general vicinity right here, and we have this ridge that's very likely to build in over Atlantic Canada, then we could have Florence potentially get forced in a bit farther west. But again, long-range threat. Don't worry about it just yet. If the forecast remains is still like this in 3 to 5 days, then check back here and we'll continue to update you. But if it does end up in this general area, then we may need to watch for a potential, and I say potential, threat to North America, United States, somewhere. So again, long range threat, but we just need to keep an eye on it. And I have no idea why the loop is rocking right now. Okay.
Now, that wave behind it, how might that affect Florence, and how might Florence affect it?
Well, both of them are pretty far apart from each other. I don't think there's going to be a direct interaction between the two. Both of them are going to continue moving towards generally in the same direction because they're both going to be influenced by the trade flow. But if this wave can remain kind of outside of Florence's shadow, if Florence kind of moves a bit farther west at a quicker rate, then this wave over here, that will eventually be over here, might have a chance to actually get going and could become another tropical cyclone. I don't know. Actually, let me check if the chances have been updated. They might have been. Yeah, they've just updated. 40% chance in the next 5 days.
I want to see what they said.
So a medium chance for this thing to develop now. And
just pan when you're finished, pan over to the Pacific storms as well.
And they upped it to 10% in the next 48 hours as well. Although,
well, I'm basically done. So here's the Pacific. So here's Norman, right here, and here's Olivia, right here, and here's Hawaii for reference. And this is the remnants of Miriam right here.
Still alive.
Yeah, this is going to be. This is dead, basically. Don't worry about Miriam anymore. Norman, moving in a general west-northwest pattern, will likely curve to the north, well away from Hawaii. But again, as Nathan said earlier, there is a 10% chance, very measly chance, for Hilo to see tropical storm force conditions, I think he said.
Yeah.
But again, it's not very likely. Olivia, this one all the way out here, likely to kind of follow in Norman's footsteps, continuing off towards the west-northwest, like all Pacific cyclones do, basically, and then eventually hit this area of kind of more stable air mass. You can see getting wrapped into Norman right here. This area kind of up here of much more dry and stable air. This will eventually get wrapped into, Olivia as well, as this one continues to move in the general direction of towards the west-northwest. Right now, Norman, I believe, is a low end 3. And Olivia is a tropical storm.
Down to category 2 now, yeah. 110.
Is it now? All right. Yeah. So it's a category 2 now. That was a bad circle.
It was in a category 4 earlier yesterday.
This time yesterday, really.
And I know this is slightly off topic, but I saw some questions earlier in the stream about 96C. I think there was some agreement last night that it was actually what we could say an unnamed storm. It was on some sites called subtropical last night.
Yeah, that was very likely a subtropical cyclone.
Devin thought it was even a Stonewall tropical storm, and the GFS phase diagrams thought so too. So it was interesting.
So it seemed like it missed the CPHC's part then.
Yeah, let me pull up the phase diagrams right now. You can see down here. Yeah, it was definitely symmetric and warm core in nature, so potentially a tropical cyclone that formed, but then eventually became more subtropical in nature.
I think they missed it because of how far north it was. It was actually off the screen. It was over 40 degrees north.
No, not quite.
Yeah.
No, not quite that north. It was more like 35, but
yeah.
I mean,
I mean, they must
Yeah,
have
that
been
was
watching
definitely
it
missed.
because it stemmed from. It isn't actually Lane, but it stemmed from Lane.
Yeah, I even saw a comment on Twitter saying it's like, yes, like the National Weather Service at Honolulu saying, yes, we know about this,
Really?
but for whatever reason they weren't issuing advisories. Not entirely sure why, but they weren't at the time.
Wow.
Well, there's always postseason
Very
analysis.
curious.
What was that, Leighton?
I said there's always postseason analysis to decide whether or not to make it tropical.
Yeah, no doubt they'll be
CPHC
looking at
takes-
that again.
Yeah.
CPHC takes forever though to release their analysis.
Yeah, it takes a few years.
Because there are like
Um,
3 people working there.
Yeah, they're severely understaffed. Recon's just making a second fix on Gordon right now.
There it is, and then we'll have news on that, no doubt, if there is any. Has they got
Yeah,
a pressure in the centre of the storm yet?
They haven't passed through it yet.
Yeah, they
Okay.
have
No, they haven't yet.
Here's the latest 1-minute visible imagery of Gordon as it progresses. It's just starting. The centre is just passing Marco Island right now. 9 miles offshore, I make it. And that's what we're looking at for the next hour as well. We'll be back in a few moments' time. You can send your questions through to us whilst we're in this short intermission, and we'll pick them up at the start of the next hour. We'll also have 1 or 2 things on Jebi as well, because that's approaching Japan still as a stage 5 on the CDPS, so that's one to watch as well. Just for everyone in the room here, for reference, Gordon's still a stage 1 on the CDPS. Not sure if that's a surprise to you guys or not.
It's moving pretty
Kind of.
fast, so that's not a surprise.
Alright, well, until a few moments' time, we're going to take a short break here. We'll be back again shortly. Stay tuned. Coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. watching Force 13's live streaming service. And we're back for the second hour of coverage on Tropical Storm Gordon and Typhoon Jebi and everything else in between. Just a minor correction to the video there at the top of the hour. The current time in Japan right now is something like 5. Is it coming up to 5 AM? Something like that. It's getting towards the morning hours. It said 7 on the video. That is not correct. But there we are. That was the only discrepancy. What is true is that Gordon is 9 miles south of Marco Island, as you saw on that graphic, and I think it was 23 miles south of, 24 miles south of Naples right now too. My name's Nathan Foy. I'm joined by the team again in this hour, a little bit lighter than it was earlier, but we are joined by Gwyneth, Leighton, and Chap as well as Strat. Good afternoon. They're all a bit quiet.
Yeah, we actually have an eyewitness report from someone in the chat saying they live in Naples. They're saying it's not really raining there at the moment. Convection is displaced to the east right now.
Yep,
so
let's look at that imagery again.
That probably explains it.
A little bit quiet over there. A little, possibly a very tiny dry slot over Naples right now. I don't know what Leighton's seeing on his radar. Let's have a look. What are we seeing?
Where am I going?
The Naples area.
Oh, that's right over here then.
I saw a few little bits there. I mean, yeah, for the centre of the storm there's very little around it.
Yeah.
This is
Also,
the case though with radar. It tends to mostly show up on satellite than radar. Just shows up as distinct bands on radar.
Strat?
Yeah, I was going to say, Recon just did a pass I want to mention in the chat. Got 104.8 millibars flight level. So, seems like...
You mean 1,004?
Yeah. Oh, God. So,
Yeah,
it seems like 1,007 millibars by National Hurricane Center probably has some reason to it. Might be slightly higher, though.
I'm waiting for the drops on data to come in to see if that's right.
Yeah. Probably take another 10 to 20 minutes for that.
Yeah, drops on data takes about 20 minutes to come in.
3 AM in Tokyo. The clock was wrong.
Yeah.
On both cases.
And that's why we are covering more of Gordon than we are of Jebi right now, because it is the middle of the night over there. We will touch on it every once in a while, but Gordon is what we can see most clearly on this GOES 16 1-minute imagery, as well as on that radar, which updates how often? 5 minutes?
It's between 2 and 10 minutes.
Between 2 and 10, that's a long time.
Yeah, it depends really what they're doing, to be honest, how busy they are.
Right.
It's updating between 2 and 5 minutes at the moment, though.
Okay. Let's take a look now at some of the graphics that I prepared before today's show. Just to show you the latest on the tracking maps and everything you need to know, really, the base level here. So you can see this was the latest Joint Typhoon Warning Center tracking map for Jebi, forecasting a landfall in Japan tomorrow, UTC that would be, so that's later on in the afternoon local time in Japan, or possibly even in the morning. I'm not quite sure on that, but around the middle of the day. It's quite funny because usually storms make landfall during the night, but this one looks like it'll be during the day. And the wind intensity they expect may be Category 2 still by then. It doesn't really pick up on the fact or the thoughts of some of the models that it picks up intensity again before the landfall. Some of the models are really pushing that. Nothing really there. Okay, let's move on. This of course is Gordon, and this was the intermediate advisory, so this is the one that has just come out. Yeah, so that's the latest, and the track never changes on their intermediate advisories, so there's not much difference here. None of the warnings have changed, so visually there's very little change to this track map. Here's Florence, and as Hank was talking about near the end of the last hour, it is a very... You can sort of tell that the NHC don't really know where it's going to go in 5 days as well, and this cone could be subject to great change as we move on. It's sort of just sending it listlessly towards Bermuda in the general direction of. Moving west-northwest at 16 miles an hour, so not particularly slow. And this is Norman as well that we decided we'd show you too. 110 miles an hour, that's moving even quicker at 20 miles an hour towards the west. And a curve is expected before it reaches the Hawaiian Islands. These are some of the solutions from the models. This is Florence, first of all, that we're looking at. One or two suggesting it would get to hurricane status. GFS towards the end of that 5-day period thinks it will become a hurricane. All of the other models keep it lower. Indeed, the HMON there quite often overestimates storms, but this one is really doing down Florence. It thinks it will barely hold on to tropical storm intensity at all, and then continue as a weak tropical storm for the whole 5-day period. Wind shear is expected to rise a little more from where it is right now, but so's sea surface temperatures, and relative humidity staying pretty much the same. Here's Gordon. This is from before it was named. HWRF there calling for a Category 2. I think that's one of the ship's models there taking it to Category 1. And then you've got the HMON moderate tropical storm. Well, it's already there now, so I don't think we can say the HMON's right, and we certainly can't say the GFS is right because it's only called for 35 knots, 40 miles an hour, and that clearly has been exceeded now. So it makes you wonder about the rest of it.
I think at the 12Z the HWRF actually backed off from Category 2. I think it's a strong tropical storm when Hank went over it in the previous hour.
Oh god, that's a huge drop.
Interesting. And for Norman as well that I've got on here, oh, where's it gone? There it is. Curious that the HMON thinks it will have a third peak at just shy of Category 3 status in about 4 days. 3.5 days. I don't think, well, you never know. There is a small drop in wind shear coming up as well, so maybe it will have a chance. Who knows? And sea surface temperatures will be rising a little bit again, so Norman may be around for a little bit longer, may give people in Hawaii a little bit of a worry, a headache as well. And I think this is the final one. This is Jebi, and you can see on here again at the top left hand panel the models, the CTCX, the HWRF and the GFS, all calling for the storm to re-intensify a whole category from where they say that it's been put at. So Category 3 GFS for some reason doesn't have a handle on the storm's intensity at all. So I wouldn't rule out Jebi right now. That is all of them.
Yeah,
Let's go.
I saw a question earlier, I think Leighton could just answer this quickly, about the mid-level eye feature with Gordon. Leighton, do you want to give a crack at that? They're talking about the radar mid-level eye feature.
It's waxing and waning, but that's expected to happen over the short term. Over the long term, it does seem to be rising pretty rapidly though. It's just responding to its local environment. The convection's blown up directly over the low-level center and the mid-level eye feature, which is typically going to indicate that it's strengthening, and it's becoming. I can't talk.
Well,
Becoming
I'll talk
more.
for you. Tyler asks whether Florence will hit him in North Carolina.
Way
Not
too
likely.
far out. We'll probably reiterate it probably at least a couple times every hour that asking about Florence 10 days out right now is definitely going to be too extreme. Long-range models kind of vary significantly, and that's especially why we shouldn't be looking at it that far out. We should be focusing on Bermuda more than anything else at the moment.
Point.
Come back to us in 4 or 5 days before we can really say much about the United States.
Yeah, it's very uncertain. Just looking to see if there's any new warnings of any description that I can read out to everyone, but there is nothing that I can see at the minute.
There's 2 new severe warnings, one in Colorado and one. That's the only thing I'm seeing on here.
Yeah, and we have another this kind of question or statement, Nathan. You're probably going to know this. You know more about tropical history than me. Someone's saying that the current forecast shows Gordon making a similar landfall to where Gustav made a landfall at.
Well, I was going to say certainly not at the same intensity, but you never know, actually. But I don't really see the comparison with Gustav, because Gustav moved over. I'm guessing he means 2008.
Yeah.
Moved over western Cuba into the Gulf. This one hasn't done that. But we were talking about analogues earlier on, and someone said Bonnie is not bad, apart from Gordon's not going to do part 2 of what Bonnie did. But Gordon might be more of an Isaac and didn't do part 1 of what Isaac did. And ended up doing the part 2, which is the striking Louisiana part.
Well, Gustav, it actually made landfall in central Louisiana. I'd say that Gordon will actually make slightly more east.
Yeah, the models have shifted ever so slightly east lately. I think the 5 p.m. track update by the National Hurricane
you know,
Center will
central
probably
Louisiana
reflect
isn't
that.
even in the cone.
Yeah.
So I personally don't see a connection to Gustav there.
No.
It's not very. I'm gonna see if this Recon data's coming yet.
At the minute, we were looking at the radar imagery there from Leighton, but now he's gone to look at the Recon. I'm going to try and get some more imagery up of the storm as well. Our main feature tonight is Gordon, or today. Of course, time zones are different everywhere, and we've got storms on all sides of the globe in the northern hemisphere. Here at Force 13 HQ, it's currently 7:13 p.m. Leighton. 1004, 1005.
1004.8. They've just flagged a SFMR of 43 knots.
Yeah, earlier they had a suspect SFMR of 50 knots a little while ago.
That was probably in the eastern side of it.
Yeah, but they do have more steady ones at 45 knots, so 50 miles an hour is justified. And they do have flight level winds close to 50 knots now as well, right after the or the center pass that they just did.
The eye.
I didn't mean to say it like that. Mid-level eye feature.
You wanted the radar, it's back on the screen. Oh my god, what happened to the low level sensor?
I'm showing one as well. Oh dear, I'm looking, and let's take a look at yours. What's happened there?
I think it's moved out of radar range slightly.
Right.
Oh no.
But I was just going to ask you before you showed us this new frame. When was the last time, I assume you've been looking at different storms for a while, when was the last time you saw a tropical storm have a feature like this that looks so pronounced?
I'm not quite
I
sure.
can't remember one, but I can't remember the name of it.
Nate had a similar feature, but it wasn't as well defined because it was moving so fast.
Nate was stronger as well.
Hermine had a similar structure.
A little bit. How would you compare this storm to Emily
Oh.
last year?
Emily was less defined on radar. I remember actually tracking that one move over Florida last year.
Yeah.
That wasn't as well defined on radar as Gordon currently is. It's got the same intensity as Emily right now,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's more organised than Emily.
And you can see towards the southeastern part of Florida there, more significant thunderstorms moving through Miami-Dade County.
I
That
have
would be the feeder bands coming off Cuba.
yeah, I have a 1 minute IR that I can quickly pull up just for a moment or two. It's going to be right here. This is the 1 minute IR imagery. Still, most of the convection, or the strongest convection, is southeast of the northernmost keys in Miami. Although, as the system continues to move northwest, they probably will get dragged over southern Florida, probably a bit southwest of Miami, though.
Yeah, most of the convective activity on systems in the Gulf of Mexico does tend to happen on the eastern side of the center. Not exactly sure why, but that's the case in most storms.
Although, to note that a lot of the convection, we're seeing some heavier convection flare up all the way up into central Florida on the Panhandle as well. Or not the Panhandle, the peninsula.
Yeah. That's mostly north of,
Yeah, definitely north and east of the center. So, most convection's displaced.
Yeah, that's probably associated with the outflow.
Yeah, definitely with the outflow. It's not in a
There's
high
definitely
share
an
environment
outflow
now, though.
There is definitely an outflow channel now.
Its main inhibitor is going to be wind shear at the moment. It's harder to tell. Gordon's right here next to Florida. This is a few hours old because the newest one's not available. But shear's decreased in the path of the storm in the past day.
Yes.
And then you can see Florence out here to the far right side.
Yep.
This is where it might be encountering more problems where weakening is anticipated, because not only is it going to be in drier air, but wind shear is definitely increasing right where the storm's heading into at the moment. And I briefly decide to focus on Florence. We'll see some deterioration in it as of late in the past few hours, so I wouldn't be surprised for them to lower the intensity for it. Yeah, this is Florence. It's trying to boost up some more convection on the western side now, but I wouldn't be surprised if they lower the intensity slightly at the 5 p.m. advisory, unless something changes. It was definitely looking much better this morning than it is right now, earlier in the day.
Yeah, certainly is. Here's another look at Gordon just briefly there. Leighton.
I'll show the 18Z ships data when it comes in. It'll probably come in around 1:45. The next hour. Takes a while for them to put it out. This is for now the 12Z data from it.
The text is a bit small. What's it telling us?
It's forecasting a peak of 71 knots on the 12Z from the ship.
Yeah. Okay. If anyone's got any comments or questions whilst we're on the air, there's been quite a few already, and Strat's looking at some of them, and I'm looking at some of them as well. Such as the updated... can you guys show the new updated cone for Gordon? We did do that, and the cone doesn't update at an intermediate advisory, which
Also,
we've just had. The next cone will be out in just less than 3 hours. And we've also got a poll running as well. On the community tab, because we love your engagement on our main channel page. There's been 128 votes so far. Will Helene form this week? 85% say yes. Wow.
Yeah, right now Helene has a 40% chance the next 5 days, according to the National Hurricane Center. 10% the next 2. And here, if you want to show it, I have the track up for that question. Still pretty narrow because it's moving pretty quickly. But landfall right now in this forecast is actually expected in Mississippi as a strong tropical storm. National Hurricane Center says it will reach 70 miles an hour right before it makes landfall.
Someone in the chat said Louisiana already has a flash flood watch for system low. Will Gordon be a tornado producer in Mississippi and Alabama?
It really depends on the environment, whether or not it's going to be tornadic. if you get a trough to the north, or an extra tropical cyclone with a front attached to it that interacts with the system, then yes, there's a tornado potential. If not, then probably not.
I think the main threat right now is definitely going to be rain. This is the forecast rain. They're saying 4 to 6 inches in parts of Louisiana and Mississippi, although they said we can see over 8 inches in parts of it. In parts
Isolated
of
amounts of 8 inches. I think that may have even been in Florida, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Because they do forecast the storm once it's inland over Louisiana to slow down for a day or two. But the other threat with flooding is going to be storm surge. They started putting out storm surge watches earlier today. This is the preliminary map mode because this is still
And warnings.
They have some warnings along the Louisiana-Mississippi border, and watches extend down further south towards New Orleans and cover Alabama. They actually even stretch a bit into Florida, into Pensacola as well.
Yep. Yes.
And we'll see the inundation map mode, what they're predicting at the moment. This is going to rise as the time goes on, as the storm continues to approach land. Just want to let it load up quickly.
Pensacola does tend
right now,
to...
it doesn't really show much. You know, it shows, if you look down here, greater than 1 foot above ground. It shows minimal amounts here, but if you zoom in, we'll see greater than 3 feet in some areas along the Mississippi coastline, really. So that's where we're seeing the biggest threat right now. Gulfport, Long Beach, past Christian, that's where we're going to see potentially the worst of storm surge at the moment. Although I think we're seeing some 3 to 5 potentially earlier. This might change, though. But that's current storm surge issues here.
I'd just like to show the cumulative rainfall according to the Miami, Florida radar. And it is around 2.5 inches in a few areas, including that place that had the flooding concern. A few areas offshore having 4 inches of total rainfall, and those areas are going to be moving in. Could see 4 inches in many land areas by the end of today. I think we'd agree with that, right?
Yeah, because those heavier bands are going to be moving over inland, probably close to the northern Keys and the southern tip of the peninsula. Miami might be able to escape the worst of it, because those bands are further south if they were moving directly to the northwest in terms of potential impacts to Miami itself.
And again, here's another quick look at the imagery, and again, as we watch it in looping animation here, that little eye feature on the radar has diminished.
Yeah, fortunately seems to be struggling a tiny bit at this point, although there still is convection coming up over it, but dying out slightly from what we saw when the eye-like features first started flaring up. So someone's also asking if we think Gordon could intensify into a Category 1. I think you'll agree with me when I say it has the potential to do it. Right now, the peak forecast for the National Hurricane Center is 70 miles an hour, so even a slight increase would make it a minimal hurricane.
The only thing I'd say is that the storm, I just feel that it's got to get some more convection nearer the center and get more structure near the center rather than being so detached from that band. But I don't see any reason why it can't become a hurricane.
Yeah, I would say pretty weak. Category 1 maybe at most. I don't think it will go Category 2.
And now we're joined by David.
Good evening or good morning.
How are you?
I'm fine, considering it's 4:24 a.m. here on the east coast of Australia.
Watching from afar, Gordon has been looking fairly good in the last few, minutes, more than hours at the minute, with that potential radar eye feature. But we're not, when we say that, we don't mean a surface eye by any mean, or that it should be anywhere near hurricane status.
Oh, it's developed considerably. The radar's looking good.
And that is what we're looking at. Leighton apparently dropped out as well, so unfortunately we can't show his output.
Let's see if I can pull up the Miami radar though for you.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Strat, because but no, just looking at all that convect. What did we say in the broadcast yesterday? Southern Florida will get around 8 to 12 inches.
And what I said more than a day ago is that why hadn't they put out any tropical storm watches for Florida?
As soon as the storm formed, they put warnings up instead. I think it's because they didn't expect it to develop until it got out of range for the winds to impact it.
I was completely stumped by that, because surely you prepare for anything, and the anything happened.
Jason, I think they might have been waiting for the surface low-level circulation to develop. But I agree, they should have issued
I was just
warnings.
completely surprised when they didn't issue something based on, you know, this was a case on them being maybe a little bit too cautious, or well, not cautious, but I don't know, maybe slightly naive. I've no idea. It's a far cry from issuing hurricane watches for Hermine before it even looked like forming, which I thought was far too early. Turned out to be correct in the end, a little bit later on, 3 days later, but this appears to be the opposite in motion. Or
Perhaps,
was, but it's happened now.
Yeah, sorry Nathan, perhaps they might have been in 2 minds, unsure what to do, but with the
I don't know whether, how much, you know, if it costs money to the economy if you issue a tropical storm warning, or whether something like that.
Well, Nathan, for our viewers, considering my location over here in Australia, there are many that are very critical with the country's national forecaster, and now with 200 forecasters in the agency, they were alerted last week changes to their operation, and they neglected here in Queensland to put out a severe thunderstorm warning, and it really caught people unaware. People actually knocked over in one of our main streets here in Brisbane, and the government was very critical of the federal agency. And my own personal position is, put the information out, prepare the people. I know we've said many times that you've got to be prepared, but just having local, Nathan, I don't know what local advisories over there in Florida are in place, but I hate to imagine what the road network is if
well, we had a look on some of the webcams earlier, didn't we, Strat?
Yeah, we did. I'm going to be able to pull up that just again briefly and then switch over to the radar.
But thankfully, David, from what we have seen on some of the webcams in the last hour, that there is very little traffic out there by the looks of things.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully,
there's one guy here at the beach right now, it seems.
This is near Fort Lauderdale.
Yep. Still rougher waves. Fortunately, even though it's Labor Day, we haven't really seen many people out on these webcams. A little bit of traffic downtown Miami, but not much. But conditions definitely rougher than what you'd normally see. But
yeah, of course.
This is a bit further north than Miami, so we're not going to see as bad conditions there. And then the worst conditions from the outer bands that are south of Florida.
Just on the edge of the yellow areas of the radar, this place.
Oh, there's 2 other people out here now. But I'll switch over to the radar just to show it as well. Here it is. Fort Lauderdale is a bit north. They're south and west of the strongest storms right now. And then you can see the mid-level eye feature southwest of Naples and Marco Island. But Fort Lauderdale is more on the outer edge of rain at this point. Move south and west a bit more inland. That's when you're going to see rain on the peninsula. And then you can see the feeder band of stronger convection off the southeast coast. That's probably going to move inland over Key Largo and the Keys and impact them before following out with the system.
Now, what happens when the system gets further west-northwest or west? What direction is it traveling in?
It's moving, if I'm not mistaken, I'll pull up the National Hurricane Center page right now. It's moving, let's see, west-northwest at 16 miles an hour. So moving at a pretty nice clip right now. It's actually moving in the same exact direction and speed as Florence is. It's a weaker storm. But here it is right now. They actually moved the location of the center from the initialization at 8:30 to 11 o'clock. They actually moved it north and east. So there is potential the center actually made landfall in Florida, but we don't really know.
So it's definitely got a closed circulation, or it's still developing the low-level circulation?
Low-level circulation looks to be pretty apparent at this point, though. This mid-level eye feature moving about the
that's what
island now.
Shannon.
That's how it looked this morning, what we're looking on the image now. I'm just trying to find out. I'm just going to try and go back in time with that radar and see if I can answer your question. But keep talking.
So it's really developed over how many hours? Because when I looked at it, well, when I looked at it, it was struggling, but it's really developed. And the sea surface temperature, Strat, do we know what that is?
Warm, 28 or 29 degrees Celsius. David, I want to read out the latest information from the National Hurricane Center to just give people a reminder if they've not been present. Summary of the watches and warnings in effect: a storm surge warning for Shell Beach to the Mississippi-Alabama border, a storm surge watch for west of Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River and east of the Mississippi-Alabama border to Navarre, a hurricane watch for the mouth of the Pearl River to the Alabama-Florida border, a tropical storm warning in effect for Golden Beach to Bonita Beach, Craig Key to Ocean Reef including Florida Bay, and Okaloosa-Walton County line westward to east of Morgan City, Louisiana, including Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas. A storm surge warning means there is danger of life-threatening inundation from rising water moving inland from the coastline during the next 36 hours in those indicated locations. For a depiction of the areas at risk, please see the National Weather Service Storm Surge Watch warning graphic at hurricanes.gov. A storm surge watch means there's a possibility of life-threatening inundation in the indicated locations. A hurricane watch means that hurricane conditions are possible, typically issued 48 hours before the event. And a tropical storm warning means that tropical storm conditions are expected somewhere within the warning areas. And the hazards, I'll just read out once more here as well. Shell Beach to the Mississippi-Alabama border, expect a 3 to 5 foot storm surge. Navarre, Florida to the Mississippi-Alabama border, 2 to 4 feet. Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River, 2 to 4 feet. And the mouth of the Mississippi River to the Louisiana-Texas border, 1 to 2 feet. Rainfall expected to deliver 2 to 4 inches over the central and northwestern Bahamas, Florida Keys and South Florida through early Tuesday. Isolated maximum amounts of 8 inches are possible over southern Florida. Gordon is expected to produce total rain accumulations of 4 to 6 inches over southern Alabama, southern Mississippi and Louisiana, with isolated maximum amounts again of 8 inches through early Thursday. And flash flooding is possible, lots of flash flood watches out in Louisiana and Mississippi. Of course you've got the wind as well, that is pretty self-explanatory, and possible tornadoes. They say a couple of tornadoes are possible tonight in southern and west central Florida. There was earlier severe thunderstorm warning in central Florida near Kissimmee, but that is now gone. So there is no severe thunderstorm warnings on land at this time, but there are quite a few special marine warnings out at sea.
Okay.
And Nathan, I see the CBS for Miami they put out a posting nearly half an hour ago saying that the flood advisory warning area has extended northward. So I'm looking at a chart close to the southern end of Ocean Reef right up to Miami. Then probably about halfway up to Western, I think it'll be the I-75 network, and it's the rain factor, Nathan, that can't be ignored. And you just mentioned the amount of inches. So is this system going to develop further?
Possible. As we've been speaking about all day. Well, it's ahead of schedule, isn't it?
Yes. Now, when did they... it's a tropical storm. When did they upgrade it to tropical storm status?
That was early this morning at about... when did that occur? That was at 8:30 AM, I believe, Eastern Daylight Time. 8:05. They did an update just after the 8 AM advisory to say it was a tropical storm at 8:05.
Right.
See, someone has pointed something out. Not sure. It's just taken a while to load. Someone said there's a severe thunderstorm warning actually in southwestern Georgia in association with
There is.
some of the outer bands.
Yes.
And
Yes, there are.
that actually seems to be directly related to Gordon. You see some outer band convection starting to flare up, probably being fed from the east of Florida. Gulf Stream's pretty warm out there.
Leighton,
So we're
thankfully,
trying to
is showing us that.
Yeah.
Broader
like,
convection coming in
happened
all the way up
on-
towards southern Georgia now, so pretty broad system actually.
It's probably associated with the upper low that's to the north, I think.
I don't think it's entirely to do with Gordon properly, but yes, that severe thunderstorm warning
I just lost my 2-hour radar.
that was issued 6 minutes ago. A severe thunderstorm was located 8 miles northwest of Coolidge, or 11 miles east of Pelham, moving west at 30 miles an hour. That's a severe thunderstorm warning until 3 PM Eastern Time for northeastern Grady, southeastern Mitchell, northwestern Thomas, and southwestern Colquitt counties.
Nathan, I just want to break in. Tropical Tidbits owner-operator Levi Cowan has just put out a posting on Twitter. It is important to note that tiny storms like Gordon are fickle and can unexpectedly intensify or weaken. Best to be prepared for the worst. In this case, a hurricane landfall on the North Gulf Coast. Regardless of peak intensity, rainfall and storm surge flooding will be issues for many. So Nathan Levi says that hurricane intensity could be a possibility.
We discussed this a lot in the first hour, David, and
Right.
I think it's a good chance of that happening. A good chance.
Which...
Now, the HWRF earlier today said Category 2. It's
Cat
backed
2.
away from that a little bit now. But what
Well,
has been clear
slightly.
so far, David, is that from the beginning the models have underestimated this storm, and I don't think they can be trusted.
Well, I know we look at the models quite frequently, but caution needs to be applied. And well, what you just said, Nathan, they've got this one wrong, and it's 25.8 degrees north, 81.9 degrees west, 45 knots, and the central pressure is 1,006. And Nathan, I know we're focusing on Gordon, but what's going on over in the Westpac? I see we have another 2 areas of interest in under 24 hours.
We've not really been looking at the West Pacific so much.
Yeah, we have
because
98W on the radar now.
Yeah, coming up to 4 in the morning over in Japan. We will be talking more about that as day breaks over there, especially as we enter the later hours tonight, if we're still here. Who knows?
Well,
but obviously,
we remain to be seen.
But we'll have updates regardless of what we're doing. But yeah, we will have a little chat about that maybe shortly. I don't know, do you want to talk about Jebi now? Here it is on the satellite image.
The 18Z ships has just come out as well.
Do you want to tell us about that?
Pretty much no change from earlier actually. Let's have a look at the rapid intensification index.
And in terms of
we're now up to 30.5 on the logistics for a 25 knot increase in 24 hours.
Now what does this gobbledygook mean in English?
It's basically the probability of a tropical cyclone rapidly intensifying within the NHC's area of responsibility.
30-something% you say?
The logistics says 30.5, the ship's rapid intensification index says 21.4%.
21. Those are higher percentages than earlier though.
Yeah, it was on 20%? 20.7 or something earlier. There's 30 knots in 24 hours and 35 knots in 24 hours are slightly higher as well. And we've now got 10% of 40 knots in 24 hours where there was nothing earlier. 13% chance, what the heck? Huh?
Interesting.
This has completely changed since earlier.
So you're saying the chances of rapid intensification have increased by some margin?
On the ships, yeah.
According to one computer model. Well, there we are.
Yeah, but only the ships does the rapid intensification index though.
Well, yes, but it could still be wrong.
Probably is.
Probably is, says Layton. Okay, well.
I'd certainly say the first one, 21% in 25 knots in 24 hours at 21% is probably the best one to go.
So you're basically telling us there's a 21% chance it will become a hurricane in the next, how long?
24 hours.
24 hours. Well, we'll wait and see on that one. It isn't yet. It's still 50 miles an hour, and you're looking at the latest track forecast issued from the National Hurricane Center with the warnings lit up there as well. The blue areas, tropical storm warning. You can just about make out the pink outline, the hurricane watch, also displayed at the bottom of your screen there briefly. And the chance of storm conditions for Gordon on the left-hand side there right now. 79% in Naples. It's probably more towards 100 now. 35% at Fort Myers.
Just had a tornado warning issued.
Tornado warning.
Where?
Illinois.
Illinois.
Oh.
Oh, I'm waiting for
Now that's not to do with Gordon. I think we can safely conclude. But it is a tornado warning nonetheless.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely got to do with Gordon.
Now, who is that in the background? I'm really struggling to hear, unfortunately.
I'm sorry.
I think that's
Chap.
Yeah.
It's Chap.
We've got a new tropical storm force wind report. 46 miles an hour in Marco Island.
Right, so Marco Island has had 46-mile-an-hour winds confirmed there.
Right to the east now of the center of the storm, it seems.
Yeah, the strongest side, I expect.
Yeah, right to the eastern center. The low-level circulation is kind of in and out of the radar range on the edge, so it's kind of looking a bit weird at the moment.
It's clearly still there, though.
Still there, it's just the western side.
But we just have no idea as to whether it's weakened at all. Have we?
There's a new band that formed in the last half an hour that's moving to the Everglades. Yeah, the Everglades. More feeder bands moving to the Miami area.
And there's been flooding concerns in one or two areas there as well.
We've got a wind damage reported now as well.
Can you tell us anything about that?
Came in 6 minutes ago. Lawn furniture and trash cans displaced. Small twigs broken.
Small twigs broken.
That's what's on the report. That was near Goodland. Which
Okay.
is again right near that low level centre.
I wasn't looking briefly there. Where was that?
Goodland. South of Marco.
Right, yes, just east.
I actually just got an update here in chat from Devin. He says that Gordon looks like it's a stage 2 on the CDPS now.
It may well be. I mean, Devon is the person who invented the cyclone destruction potential scale.
Says it's a 14.4 total now.
So we're obviously going to use his numbers because he made it.
So, first time there's been an upgrade away from stage 1 with the storm at this point.
So he's calling it a stage 2, and that would call for at least moderate damage.
This tornado warning
I
looks
think
like
that
it's
certainly is a possibility.
Could you say that again? We're struggling with
I mean,
chat's audio.
That certainly is a possibility.
Yeah.
God, that microphone's erratic.
What are we looking at now? Is this the Illinois?
Oh yeah, this is the tornado warning storm.
So there's the tornado warning in Illinois right now. If you've got any questions for us or any comments, do send your message in. We're also still running that poll at the bottom. It seems pretty conclusive, but you can still have your say. Will Helene form this week? 85% said yes recently. I'm just checking to see for an update now. It's now 84% after 147 votes. Let's see some comments on that whilst we have a spare moment. Ryber YT says tropical wave on the Atlantic is Helene, I assume. Games Division says no, possibly but not likely, 40% chance. Jeanson says yes. Why do I feel half of the comment section has never actually paid attention to favourable, unfavourable conditions for these systems? Interesting comment. Eric Fowler says no. Why is everyone blinded by last year's storms? It's not going to happen. We are in an El Nino. No chance of another storm happening for another couple of weeks. Not so sure about that. Science Nerd says...
never say never.
Science Nerd says yes, it will hit the Lesser Antilles and then the southern east coast. So someone's confident. Bullish, I would say. Maybe a little bit crazy. Florida Boy 407 says yes, a Category 4 monster. Okay, wonderful.
Oh god. I don't know if we want to take a little bit of time now. We're close to the end of the hour to look at computer models briefly if you guys want to do that.
Yeah.
I'm focusing.
I have for the GFS up the Zygrip model just because it's the cleanest and probably the best looking in my opinion.
Yeah, well, I don't mind. I mean, we did the models last hour, but we now got another viewpoint, so we can have another look here.
Yep. So, here's Zygrip. This is the GFS run. Here's Florence right here. GFS has been really struggling to initiate Gordon, so we probably won't be able to see very much of it. But the GFS intensifies it into a hurricane rather than weakening it in pretty hostile conditions. So it allows it to really turn out to sea really before it even gets to Bermuda. I think it actually has it as a Category 2 storm at the end of this run. And this would be a week out, 7 days.
Strat.
So, too far for certain. Yes.
92L has formed.
Oh, God.
Invest 92L.
So they've designated that as Invest 92L.
The
but
Florence is now an invest.
But this would be Florence. GFS only shows it going out to sea. This is one model. There's dozens of others.
It's not picking up that other wave either.
No, it's not. But we're still
It's
too far out to
just-
say anything for certain.
Well, I think I can trace it there, and it's staying very far south. You see that there?
Yeah,
And that pulse.
Trace it a little bit, barely. I think the Euro can tell a better story about it. Here's the 12Z Euro run. It's almost fully rendered now. But here's Florence 0Z, or 12Z. Gordon's visible on it. You go to 2 days out, Gordon's inland, Florence is weakening. And I think this is the wave. Right here, pretty
Yep.
broad at this point.
Yeah,
Go on to 4 days. It weakens Florence substantially while
trying to organize 92L and not really doing it. It shows a more organized wave coming off as well. We go to day 5, it finally starts to organize 92L even more so with the wave behind it, and starts to try to re-intensify Florence. And then you go to 7 days out, you have 3 active systems here, 2 in the main development region, Florence up here, maybe as a tropical storm, minimal hurricane at best. But according to the Euro, we're probably going to see a lot more action than the GFS says.
Just want to point out that the satellite appearances are catching up to the radar.
We're struggling to hear you, Leighton.
Just want to say the satellite appearances are catching up to the radar appearance.
The satellite appearance is catching up to the radar appearance.
Yeah, I'll go over here and actually focus in on the storm then. Here's Gordon on IR. That flare with the convection that really came with the mid-level eye feature there. And a pretty solid storm at this point, really, in terms of convection. Still mostly displaced to the east, though. Although it's starting to try to get some more things wrapped around its core at this point.
Yeah, what we've been seeing happening on the radar over the last few hours is now beginning to happen in satellite imagery. Interesting to watch it from every time, though.
I think he's talking to himself over there, we can barely hear you.
No, I was just saying, it's interesting to watch the appearance catching up to the radar.
We're still observing it.
Yeah, a little bit. You're starting to see more convection be over the center at this point in time compared to earlier. And if you look at the radar history, I don't have it right now, but it shows the center of the storm. It did look like it was over the Florida Peninsula earlier today.
Yeah, it was over, just barely inland. It was near.
So maybe...
It moved near Flamingo. That's the nearest place name I could find to where it passed. Moved through the upper keys and near Flamingo.
Looking at this imagery again here. Yeah, I see what you mean by that comment about the satellite imagery.
I think the viewers actually said that there's a severe thunderstorm warning east of Tallahassee.
Yeah, that's just popped up on mine. Whoops, that was not meant to happen. Where is it there?
We're just coming up to the end of this hour. Let's see if we've got any more questions. Someone wants a poll, will Gordon become a hurricane? Well, we sort of... No, we didn't actually do that, but...
We did PTC 7.
Yeah.
That's what we did. And out of almost 400
Most people
votes,
say
there's
yes.
a lot of it. 393 votes, 71% of people yesterday said yes. And though it looked less likely yesterday, it looks to be more likely today than it did then.
Crikey,
So
yes.
maybe a bit of foresight from the viewers.
That's not great. That's not good news. I'm just looking to see if there's any further warnings out there at the minute.
And
nothing especially.
There's
I'm
a few
looking-
new severes, there's a few new special marines. I don't think any of the new special marines are actually associated with Gordon.
No.
The only severe you could really say is associated with Gordon is the one in Florida, which is associated with the trough to its north, as Gordon interacts with that trough. There's an outflow channel starting to form north of Gordon now as well. So it's beginning to establish itself within its local environment now.
Yeah, and I'm looking at some more messages from Devin right now, and he said in terms of the CDPS, the reason it's pretty low right now is because of its small size. So that's really the main inhibitor, he says, for it right now. It's probably as well as its forward speed. It isn't slow at all. 16 miles an hour to the west-northwest right now, along with a smaller core, is the reason it's so low down on the scale right now, really.
Possible slight rotation in the severe in Florida.
So where's this?
This is the one over Madison and Taylor counties, Florida. Possible slight rotation. It's not much, but you can sort of make it out.
Okay then. David, have you got any comments for us right now? He's always...
Not at this point in time.
You're usually monitoring the news wires. They're pretty quiet, I'm
Yes,
guessing.
I am. Okay, the Hurricane Hunters continue to find signs of a developing eyewall. Aircraft reconnaissance has measured winds at about 60 miles per hour. Now,
Flight level or at the surface?
Probably flight level. What's the source? That's
Yeah,
a better
flight level,
question.
50 knots flight level, so that makes sense.
Alright, straight here comes this image, mate. Sorry, but I'm not up on the
That's
technical
probably
info.
surface winds looking at radar data.
Yeah, I have that. I'll just pull this up anyways.
Yeah.
It's actually bigger on
To
scale here.
convert that kind of wind, it would be about 60 mile an hour at the surface from radar
I'll just
level.
screen share this quickly. This is the recon data from the last hour the plane was in the system and actually left. It finished its mission, so this is the second pass. The storm got a bit stronger. They got up to 50 knots flight level, which would be 60 miles an hour, and surface readings on the winds of 45 knots, so that'd be about 50 miles an hour.
Yeah,
Also, lower pressure as well. I'm interested to see if they updated if the drop zone came in. It has not, so we don't really have the updated pressure
I don't
reading
think
there.
they dropped the drops on near the circulation, so... Yeah, converting the radar winds also gives 61 miles an hour, which is basically in line with the Recon data, so it's definitely intensified even more. And what they've remarked saying with the eye wall on Recon, you can see that occasionally on radar imagery when it's in range. Stupid bloody thing.
Interesting charts there.
So that's just the recon data right now. This is the past hour. Some of it's kind of hard to read. They had the maximum rain rate per hour offshore at almost 50 millimeters per hour. It might be a bit higher than that elsewhere.
We've got more questions. Does Gordon look like it's tracking up the Florida west coast?
Yes.
Depends what you mean by that. To a degree at the minute, but it won't keep doing that. And Starkiller says, is the area of interest off the coast of Africa a threat to Florida? Whoa, steady on. We've got a very long time before we'll even consider that.
It's what, 2 weeks out?
2 weeks out. Forecasting hasn't gone that far yet. Hasn't got that far to give you a decent 2 week prediction. My goodness.
It takes about 2 weeks for the systems to go from the coast of Africa to
Yep.
Florida.
We gotta go. Back in an hour. Not in an hour. Back in a few minutes. But at the end of the hour, this is Force 13 Live. Stay tuned. Coverage continues in a moment. You can follow Force 13's outlets, the website force13.com, our YouTube page, youtube.com/Force13, on Facebook under the same name, Force13, and our Twitter handle, it's @Force13 if you wish to get in touch. You can also add Force13 on Skype, and my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. watching Force 13's live streaming service. Third hour of Force 13 Live. This is the latest on Tropical Storm Gordon, which is the main feature for us today, and it is a 50-mile-an-hour storm with winds with a pressure of 1005 millibars or so, unless Recon have found something different. To find out, let me introduce my team, and have they?
I just checked right now. The updated drop zone shows 1006 millibars, but that was from a little over half an hour ago.
Hang on, let me check the data.
National Hurricane Center went with 1007 at their 2 p.m. update. This drop zone from about 30 or so minutes ago shows 1006, so a little bit deeper.
What's the winds at the drop down of that drop zone?
Winds maxed out at flight level at around 50 knots. So.
No, I mean,
and
when
surface about 45. So
I mean,
healthy 50 mile an hour.
When the drop zone dropped, what was the pressure? What was the wind at the lowest pressure on the drop zone?
Lowest pressure on the drop zone at around 1,000, just below 1,005 millibars. It said it measured flight level winds of 20 or so knots at that time, so it could have potentially been lower.
Oh, we just got a vortex data message coming.
What's it telling us?
Pressure 1,006, so probably go 1,005.
We've gone with 1,005 at this hour.
Oh yeah, it's also ATCF updated probably. Still has Florence at 55 knots. Updated to have Gordon at 45 knots.
Gordon has a open 5-mile nautical mile. Oh god, say that again. Gordon has a 5 nautical mile open pinhole eye. On the vortex message. SFMR
Really?
50 knots. 50, yeah. So it says, open in the northwest, circular with diameter.
Eye shape and diameter, circular with a diameter.
It's a pinhole eye and it's open to the northwest.
So is that official?
Knots. It will be, because it's the vortex data message.
So Gordon has an eye, folks, and it's nowhere near hurricane status, we think.
So 50 knots, that's in line with the radar data. Location and time of estimated maximum surface wind 4 nautical miles to the east-southeast.
And the storm's only 11 miles west of Naples.
I'm not sure if you would consider that a true eye or not.
No.
Well, they seem to be on the Recon.
A false eye.
They seem to be on the Recon data. The aircraft is going back to base now. It's at 7,700 meters.
We're seeing more questions about Florence 10 days out.
Oh,
We're
God.
going to stick by continuously with what we're saying, that you can't count any of that this far out. You know, you come back in 5 days when it's a more reasonable forecast, really.
Hmm.
Can't really count any data that comes out 10 days because so much can change in that time period. If you want to be concerned for anything long range with Florence, you should be focused more on Bermuda than the United States at this point. And also with other storms with the ATCF, Gordon's down to 100 miles an hour. Olivia's up to
Gordon?
70.
Hold on, slow down.
Or not Gordon. No, not Gordon. Norman.
Alright.
Oh,
Norman.
God, that's a gorgeous
And
song about the cat.
Jebi's down to 90 as well.
Down at 90.
Definitely not looking impressive on satellite, but it's some of
Jebi's
some
down to 90 miles an hour.
down to 80 knots. Yep.
Wow, that's
but-
really surprising.
But some of
Norman-
Jebi's outer bands have actually started to reach Shikoku and the mainland Japanese island as well.
I wouldn't go down that far. I would still say 100 just. We're just looking
Well,
at
that's what
Jebi
I'm
on
saying.
these three
No,
panels
We're
here.
saying, or
They've got an
re-intensification.
80 knots, 958 millbars for JB. Olivia's up to 60 knots.
Yeah, it's still
Oh.
really trying its best to hold itself together at this point.
Yeah, it's having an issue actually forming the eye.
Not really
We've got
doing
Invest
the best job at
92.
it, though.
What the hell? Invest 92 hours pressure's really low for off Africa. What?
What is it?
1005.
That is really low.
So
for
Invest
Africa.
92 is just as deep as Gordon, apparently.
That is really interesting.
That's a really low pressure off the coast of Africa. What?
That severe thunderstorm warning remains in effect until 3:30 p.m. for north central Taylor and southwestern Madison counties.
Yeah.
The locations impacted include Perry, Lake Bird, Ido, Moseley Hall, Ebb, Secotan, Boyd, Eridu, Simmons, and Shady Grove.
Yeah, Nathan, I was wondering if you
Shady
just want to
Grove.
go over the tropical storm warnings and watches again, just because we probably have a lot of different viewers than we had an
Would
hour
you like
ago.
to do that? Or are you wanting me to do that?
I'll pull it up myself now, then. Let's see.
I can do that just fine.
No, I guess I'll do it.
Okay.
Let's see.
No.
No changes from 11 a.m. in terms of watches and warnings. There's a storm surge watch for Shell Beach, Mississippi to the Alabama border. Or that's a warning. And then storm surge watch for west of Shell Beach to the mouth of the Mississippi River. And then east of the Mississippi-Alabama border to Navarre. And there is a hurricane watch in effect from the mouth of the Pearl River to the Alabama-Florida border. And a tropical storm warning in effect for Golden Beach to Bonita Beach. Craig Key to Ocean Reef, including Florida Bay. And Okaloosa, Walton County line westward to east of Morgan City, Louisiana, including Lake Pontchartrain and Lake Maurepas.
You're going to get berated by Nelson for that one.
Seems like it.
Nelson, another one of our members who is in the New Orleans area. We may well hear from him, if not tonight, then in the near future. We did hear from him last night. David, any input?
No, it's very quiet on the social media, the Twitter platform. Very quiet on Gordon.
That's odd. That's a bit
I'm
strange.
just. And a blocking high, straight, and you can help me on this. A blocking high is preventing Gordon from heading out to sea.
It wouldn't be able to.
Gordon?
Kind of thing.
Gordon.
I don't think Gordon in the Gulf
Everyone
of
is
Mexico can
getting
really
the
head out to
storms
sea at this point.
No.
Well, Florence. Sorry,
Florence. Over the next few days or so, yeah, there's going to be a high pressure area to the north of the system for sure, keeping it from really moving far enough to the north, although it's really just going with the trade winds at this point, slowly moving west-northwest. That's only really going to become a big factor once we get more long range on whether or not it goes out to sea or not, but that also has to go with the intensity, and models are varying pretty greatly with that. You got half of them
David,
that
what have you
keep it-
just posted?
I thought you'll find that interesting.
Oh, David. No.
Why is
No,
it posting
ECMW
2
long
weeks?
term.
Well, let's draw attention
Let's
to
have
it.
a look at it.
No,
That's-
don't draw attention to it. You're gonna get everyone excited for something that isn't set in
No,
stone at all.
but-
That there is 10 days out. It is one of a myriad of possibilities.
Yeah, well, possibility, but I always say...
And this one is much less likely of the possibilities. The GFS ensembles have most of the scenarios. On most of the scenarios, Florence moves east of Bermuda and goes nowhere near the eastern seaboard. But there is that small chance. I'd give it 20% at the minute.
Oh, Nathan, here's this one.
Really depends on the intensity over the next few days.
That's exactly the same.
because The
Oh,
big
alright.
difference is the GFS actually intensifies it from here despite the hostile conditions it's going to be in for the next couple of days, while the Euro almost dissipates it, so it's much easier for it to be steered westward and not get taken out to sea. But, you know, like we've been saying this whole time, mountain of salt to take with that, because that is 10 days out, you know, possibilities of seeing anything like that.
One of our viewers
again-
watching from Tampa tells us that there's heavy rain there right now.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, the
you look at the
centre
radar.
of Gordon's quite close to there at the moment.
Try to
Let's
switch over.
look at the Tampa area if we can. See how things
Yeah,
are
I
going
have
up
a
there.
radar I can pull up for it, but I think Leighton's got a better program than I do.
And Strat is jealous.
No, I'm not. Don't
I've
worry.
actually got a radar so I can get to in Tampa, so I'll connect to that. Hopefully I can actually get a better view of Gordon from this side.
It's probably about time to switch to Tampa anyway, because it is
Yeah.
probably pretty much in the halfway.
Storm's closer to Tampa than Miami at this point, probably.
It's just about the midpoint at the minute. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
my
but
internet is
getting-
getting a huge fart again. Come on.
There's
no,
actually a
thank you.
really strong burst of convection developing directly to the north of Tampa.
Well, there we
North
are.
of
You
the
can see it now.
Really heavy burst, stronger than the convection that's south of the
And it's
northern
no
Keys
surprise
now.
that people are now saying the ECMWF is better than the GFS.
Did always
I wonder why they're saying that at this moment in time.
Let's just not focus. I think this is obviously something. Focus on Bermuda more than focusing on America right now, because Bermuda's much closer to the storm than America is.
And that's coming from someone who's on the East Coast.
Yes, it is. When you're 10 days out, almost anything can happen, really. You know, the storm can either still maintain its unexpected intensity. We thought it'd weaken further from 50 miles an hour, and it managed to maintain itself and grow stronger.
Well, as we saw earlier, models are split on Florence. We'll get onto that a little bit again later, but first looking at this area. Who was that?
It's really no telling what happened. Really no telling what it's gonna do 10 hours out. Not 10 hours, 10 days.
10 days. Yeah, not at all. So we advise a lot of caution on that.
Someone asked a question. I think this is kind of useful. Someone's asking what Gordon's track has been over the past hour.
It's been moving just
I
the
feel
west
like
of northwest, I'd say.
Maybe a bit more of a northerly jog. I don't know. Radar is going to be the better way to get that answer. If you want to.
That's a good loop there, showing its direction.
It's moving just west of northwest.
But I think
At
it's
the
quite
moment.
clear to see that's, well, it's clear to me that in the last hour it's been a northwestward motion.
So, a bit further north than what the National Hurricane Center has said its current movement is.
It does seem to have sped up slightly as well. Yeah, there's definitely
Interesting.
Northwest. A due northwestward motion.
But still looks like, at least in the latest frames as well, we're starting to get a bit more organization in terms of convection over the center of the storm as well.
And the problem is it's between radar sites, the area of the eye that we can't see.
Yeah. So we're sort of in between zones here on the radar.
I mean, even if I go to the other site,
Really shows that we're
got no better of view. It's literally that area of the eye is between the sites that we can't see.
Someone's asking if Gordon's impacts will be gone from Tampa by tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Sure.
Should be, but it has a lot of convection displaced to the southeast of it. So, I don't know, maybe the person's wondering about their school day tomorrow.
We're running a poll as well, 175 votes so far. Will Helene form this week? 86% say yes. So you can still have your say on that as well. That's on the community tab of the YouTube channel on our account. And one or two people, I think, were suggesting in the comments just then, Leighton, that on this imagery you're showing us, it's becoming elongated. Is that an illusion?
It's because it's between radar sites.
So you're saying that's an illusion?
One of them it's moving towards the site, and the other one it's moving away, so it's quite stretched out.
When it reaches the end of a radar, it looks more stretched out. We saw that in particular with multiple storms this year that entered the Central Pacific on GOES 16. That they look really stretched out and hard to discern.
I mean,
really.
even looking at high levels of the atmosphere with the radar, it's still messed up. Because it's between sites and it can't pick it up.
Someone's asking why they don't have better radar in that location.
No idea. There is plans to put more radars out, but it's just the planning.
Here's the latest storm total precipitation amounts for the area. Miami looks like it's just on the edge of probably about an inch or so there. A little bit further south it's quite a bit more. Homestead area is probably about 2 inches. Key Largo is probably just short of 2 inches, but some areas over the Everglades getting towards probably 3+ now, probably close to 4.
You might see at least another inch or two with the rest of this convection that's starting to move northwest towards these areas as well.
Yeah, that band formed and it's been sat over them since it started moving inland. So.
And Naples just probably not too far away from getting its first ½ inch in total. And
yeah, that band will probably move over.
Marco
Naples.
Island just about 5 inches there, half an inch there as well.
No one can talk tonight. This is hilarious.
And there's another view.
Yeah, someone's saying the image is cut off. Yeah, this doesn't really reach Naples all the way, but you can kind of get a general look at how much rain has fallen there. But I'm wondering, is there any more warnings in effect, severe thunderstorm warnings in Florida with the storm right now?
I've been watching. There was one that's still in effect till half past, but I don't believe there's anything else.
Yeah, I'm just a bit curious because we've seen that really strong burst of convection.
There is a severe thunderstorm warning for southwestern Jefferson County in the Big Bend of Florida, northwestern Taylor County and southwestern Madison County until 4 p.m. That's a severe thunderstorm warning.
Yeah, that's an extension of the previous warning.
Okay.
So that's going to go for another 40 minutes or so at this point.
That's okay.
And we have someone in Tampa saying it's not raining there currently. Looks like with the movement of the storm, it's probably going to change soon. There's
hit and miss around the Tampa area right now.
But as the hours go on, you're going to get more steady rain that moves into the area, really.
So several warnings should go out. Especially if that eastern band containing the worst of the convection goes over that area as it moves further north. They're just getting the outflow of it at the moment, so it's not that heavy.
I have...
If that eastern band goes over, it should get quite heavy.
Yeah, this would be some 1-minute imagery infrared of Gordon. This covers all of Florida, so you can really see where the heaviest rain is occurring, where the strongest bands are, where the reasons there's thunderstorm warnings in certain areas, if you want to take a look at this. Tampa isn't really in a hit or miss area. It's more dry slots in parts of southern Florida right now, but they're probably going to get filled up in the next couple of hours. The heaviest rain in Florida right now is actually in the northern part of the peninsula, surprisingly.
Yeah, that's where Gordon's interacting with that trough to its north, so causing more rain.
But we are starting to see some more solid and maintained convection around the core of the system, which is just off the coast of western Florida right now. It actually may have formed over land earlier today before moving offshore.
Yeah, it pulled a Julia, pulled a, what was the other one that did it over Louisiana? It was a Bonnie one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
There seems to be a lot of those in recent decades. A lot of them, there's only been 3, but yeah.
Julia, but
It did a Julia and a Bonnie. More of a Julia because it was Florida, but yeah.
So that's what we're really seeing in terms of convection at this point.
Something interesting when you see, wow, hello. That core is really catching up to the radar appearance on satellite.
Let's see if we can get some more 1-minute visible imagery that we can show you here. This is the latest. If it plays properly, there it goes. It's just catching all of the frames.
Wow, that outflow is so well established.
It's looking fairly impressive right now.
Me saying those 60-mile-an-hour tropical storm. I think it's stronger. The radar
I'm curious to see when more Recon goes in.
I'll have a look when the next Recon flight is. Give me a minute. For today. And here it comes.
There's the plan of the day from the reconnaissance planes.
There's another one set for 22Z, that'll be a No. 2 flight.
Also, here's just something from today. As of lately, according to Miami's local CBS station, over 6,000 customers are without power at this point in time. So definitely some outages starting to occur with the storm.
Really? What was the number?
Over 6,000 customers, so that could range.
6,000.
So that's probably around 12 to 15,000 people, about.
Really?
Yeah, because usually multiple people live in one house.
Here's another look at the intensity expectations from the HWRF graphics. It shows the other models by it as well. HWRF and HMON both going with a borderline hurricane. The CTCX, a mid-range tropical storm. And the GFS still not picking up really on it at all.
The GFS
Doesn't want to
really
play ball.
GFS really struggles with small systems like this.
Just won't play ball.
Next Recon takes off a 2030Z. Should make its first fix around 22Z. It's a NOAA P3 radar mission.
Yeah, and it looks like Homestead's actually getting some bad conditions right now. I'm just looking around social media for see if I can get any images or videos that I can see. And parts of Homestead right now look like they're dealing with pretty heavy rain in particular.
That's the eastern band.
And I also just got an update from Nelson via private message.
Oh,
They're already
boy.
Yep, they're already putting out sandbags and stuff for people to take to door up and protect themselves in Mississippi at this point in time. And he said something yesterday about 115 of the 120 pumps in New Orleans are ready to go to keep water out of the city at this point in time as well.
Yeah, good. At least they're ready for it.
Lots of preparation happening on the northern Gulf Coast already. It's good to see that they're prepping pretty early on before the storm's actually really getting there.
I think they're starting to learn their lesson after recent events. I say recent, I mean over the last decade or two. But yeah. They know not to mess with these. That should be by now. Obviously, you still got the occasional idiot that doesn't bloody do it.
David, any news?
It is very quiet, but I would like straight to bring up the Doppler window for the local radar. So I just want to see where the main intensity areas are, and considering 6,000 without electricity, police have had to intervene on, I think it's the A1A highway, Fort Lauderdale, due to power lines down.
Oh, really? Now that's in a very similar area to that webcam near the beginning of our stream.
Yeah, and
Or beginning of this hour.
still
Whenever it
pretty
was.
rough waves there, but it doesn't look like there's a lot of rain anymore near Fort Lauderdale at this point for them. But rougher seas for sure. Recurrence. Fortunately, looking at these cams, it doesn't really look like many people have chosen to be out here. Although at the top of the hour, there were a few people here at this pier. From what I've seen, it doesn't look like they're really there anymore, but can't really tell for sure.
The IE is starting to pass between two radars. There's no other radar I can get to get the full eye.
Yeah. So we're sort of in a bit of a grey area.
You lost 6,000. It should move fully into the. I think it's the Tampa radar to the north of it.
Yeah, probably within the next hour or so, it's going to be in range. Key West radar barely has it at the northern side of it as well.
Yeah.
I saw someone making a comment about how in Florida there wasn't any time to prepare for Gordon. And yeah, there wasn't, because they didn't issue timely warnings, and they should have done.
It's because initially it developed much faster than we really expected. It was only
it was
a 10%
PTC well before striking Florida, and they didn't put any warnings out.
Well, I mean, initially people weren't
I'm
really
just
keeping track of it.
completely baffled and aghast as to why they didn't do that.
Yeah, that was actually quite interesting. They should have put it
Hello,
throughout the
guys.
whole Gulf Coast.
I was just saying, like, when it first became, an area of interest on the National Hurricane Center, people in the area probably weren't paying much attention to it because
I don't mean then, but it was a PTC, a potential tropical cyclone, for a good while before striking Florida.
About 18.
It was only a PTC for about 6 hours before conditions
more than
started to
6
really hit.
more than 6 hours.
Nah.
Or 6 hours of daytime, really. There's a PTC yesterday.
It's better than
at 5
none.
p.m. Eastern.
It's better than
That's
0.
True. But they probably only had 3 or 4 hours before the shops really closed up for the night to really do things.
Well,
Fortunately, though,
now a
it's
lot
impacting
of people
only
in
3
Florida
weeks.
had to fend for themselves, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it's a pretty sad state.
Oh, look at that radar interference.
Hello?
Who's that? That's Orlando.
Florida.
Yes, his code name Florida.
So I haven't been really monitoring this storm since I've been gone, but any news? Anything interesting that I missed?
It's got a 5 nautical mile wide pinhole eye.
It's got a little bit of an eye feature.
I've been hearing news that we have a new area of investigation.
Yes, Invest 92L.
Invest 92L now. 40% chance of development in the next 5 days.
It's got a
What?
really low pressure.
Statistical models show it becoming a tropical storm, but those are not really anything that show the current conditions. It just came off the west coast of Africa, though, so to have it as an invest at this point is showing that there really is a chance for potential development down the road. It has a while before it gets there.
I mean, 2016.
People saying that Gordon appears to be deteriorating. That is not necessarily the case. It's the
Nah.
radar quality.
It's basically well, when it comes to I've been noticing the cloud tops and stuff. I think it's trying to lessen its load, I guess you could say, and put it in that sense where it's trying to reorganize itself to a more suitable structure.
I also got another update from Nelson. In New Orleans, they're actually already closing schools tomorrow, not just Wednesday.
I wouldn't be surprised with preparations and stuff. Are required.
So it's not a lot of schools. Right now it only shows one school in particular, but I assume as the night goes on, or the day goes on into the evening, that more schools will probably close down for tomorrow and then surely for Wednesday.
Probably.
I bet you there's going to be like that one school open.
So, more people saying it doesn't look as good as it did about an hour ago. Well, that's because it's going to the edge of the radar coverage that it wasn't at the edge of an hour ago. It might be weaker, but we don't know. The NWS, the National Weather Service, depend too much on the GFS, says Steve Aday.
Perhaps they do.
Well, they shouldn't be
agree with
listening to it at all at the minute because it's initializing every storm wrong.
The GFS uses a ton of models, or not the GFS, the NHC uses a ton of models to really make their decisions, along with analogs from the past and their like personal input. So I wouldn't really say they rely too much on the GFS.
Indeed.
I wouldn't either.
Well then, shall we take a quick look at Jebi then right now?
Yeah, why not?
Well, here it is on the satellite image. This is a recent image of the storm. Now, I wonder what category everyone thinks this is, because according to the ATCF information, it's down to category 1. That's not official information, that's the information that JTWC uses. The JMA, who are the officials in the area, are saying that it's still a category 2, which is curious, because they usually go lower than the JTWC, but at the minute they're still saying category 2. And I would agree with that. Does anyone have any thoughts on Jebi right now?
I'd say it's still a category 2.
It's still really trying to close off the eye wall. It's been struggling to do it, but
I would personally say it's a weak one, though.
Looking at visible Florence. Oh, for God's sake, Olivia.
Oh, you're talking about Olivia now. Well, that's another storm out there.
I called it Florence, for God's sake.
Tell us about Olivia.
It's looking like it's trying to develop an eye invisible. Actually, let me try and get an infrared on it. That'll be a lot easier to see what it's doing.
Norman is down to 105 miles an hour, a pressure of 971.
Yeah. Here we go. Okay, now it's throwing frames in and out. Okay. Here we go. Oh, it's doing it again. Amazing.
And the pressure in Olivia's gone down quite a bit as well, to 991 now.
Yeah.
991. Pretty high.
You don't need. If you want to get to the sort, you're all right. So.
Oh God. Yeah, it's trying to develop an eye wall. It's still open to the northwest though, on Olivia. The west-northwest actually. Olivia's really struggling to get going. It was predicted to be a hurricane by this point.
Yes, and one or two of the models really had it going to reach some massive intensity category 3 or 4, talking about the HWRF there.
Yeah,
what a surprise.
120 knots. So, let's look at the roadkill that's known as Norman. What?
Here's another visualization of the two storms in the Eastern Pacific, which we're just about to get a look of. Once
it's on the very edge of the Ghost satellite, so it's not very good, and I can't get access to Ghost 17 at the moment, so...
Well, I've got Ghost 17 here, showing both the systems here. I was going to say they were both hurricanes then, but it's not quite true. Olivia just shy at 70 miles an hour, the latest ATCF update, which we assume the National Hurricane Center will go on and agree with. The imagery is a little bit choppy though, so we'll just keep a still image on the screen so it doesn't keep killing our eyes. And you can see these two systems here, both of them not looking particularly grand. And this is on the quite a bit more grand GOES 17 satellite imagery here. Further to the west, somewhere is the remnants of Miriam, I think it's that right up there.
How sad.
Looks
Yeah,
terrible.
and do we see 96C up there as well, maybe?
Not.
Oh no, that's gonna be out of Go 17 range, isn't it?
That'll be on Himawari.
Yeah, that'll be Himawari. It's over the date line at this point, Annie.
Miriam actually has more convection than it did yesterday.
I can't even find it.
Let's have a look. I think it dropped off the feed because it's not an ATCF anymore either. Have I
I
lost
think
it?
96C is gone, but it was something last night as it kind of raced northward.
It might be that little feature there in the middle of the image, right in the middle of the ocean. It really is the middle of nowhere. And then we move back further west, and there you can see Jebi on approach to Japan. The western side of Jebi looks terrible, I've got to admit. But the band already moving into the Shikoku and the Kansai region of Japan now. A typhoon warning is in effect for parts of Kyushu, the southern and
I'll
eastern
just
parts.
pull up a screen share of the warnings with David's image that he's given me. A lot more warnings than what we saw yesterday.
Yes.
And let me just
They're
see.
eerie and purple.
Now that graphic there is showing warnings of all kinds, but I'm just talking about the typhoon and storm-related warnings, and I can tell you that quite a few areas are now under typhoon warning equivalents now. The Amami Islands, Kagoshima, Miyazaki, Oita, the whole island of Shikoku now, Okayama, these are the prefectures, Wakayama, Mi, and Aichi, all under typhoon warnings. Gale advisories extending as far east as Shizuoka, including the Itsu Islands as well. So that's quite a large area under watches and warnings at present. So as we see, it is a very busy tropics that we've got. We're looking at all kinds of things. Everything's going on at the minute. That's called early September in the world tropics.
Yeah, we're really dealing with everything. Because, I think we talked about this a little bit yesterday. The MJO pulse is almost completely neutral, so we're not really seeing convection being favored in any part of the world right now. It's pretty solid to even out everywhere, and that's basically what we've been seeing. Just a plethora of activity that we've seen, really.
It does appear that Gordon might be training a little bit of right.
And here's a visible image of the Atlantic right now, where you can see Gordon on the left hand side over Florida and Florence near the right hand side, and a tiny little disturbance in the middle of the two. It's certainly quite some distance away from 2017, I can tell you that.
It looks like Florence Center is kind of starting to become slightly exposed at this point. It just looks on that visible imagery that you're showing right there that
Let's zoom in.
a bit of drier air is kind of showing up there.
Alright. Interesting.
But you do have stronger convection on the western side now. It's not as uniform over the center at this point.
Yeah, the one of the centres seems to have died out and started coming back. It's further to the west than the centre is.
Just trying to get this imagery animated here so we can see a progression of Florence today. As stated, there was lots of activity out there, many different things to track at the same time, but if you've got any questions about any of these storms and where they're going, feel free to ask the question in the comments. We are going to be finishing up after this hour, and there'll be many more updates and maybe more live events later tonight. But now we are joined by Nelson, so given that you're in a tropical storm warning as well, let's hear from you. What's going on?
The main preparations right now are being made, obviously, in Alabama and Mississippi. As Strat mentioned earlier, Sandbag locations are available in all the Gulf counties and parishes from Louisiana through the western part of Florida, and there is a voluntary evacuation of Grand Isle, Louisiana. But that's about it for right now. There's no panic here in New Orleans, and based on the latest model runs, it looks like we may actually miss out on this one, and that's a good thing.
Yes, it could be panning a little bit further east. It certainly looks like that New Orleans will be on the weaker western side.
And that's not something I am going to complain about.
Now, you said Grand Isle there being voluntarily evacuated.
Yes, the mayor has just said, it's a low-lying area of the state. It's very near the Gulf. It does flood regularly with small storms. So the mayor has just said, we're willing to let you evacuate. Grand Isle is the only place in Louisiana where schools are closed tomorrow as well.
Ah.
Interesting.
Okay, and I'm guessing they'll be... Well, will schools be closing on Wednesday?
I think that has a lot to do with the forecasted track and what happens in the next couple hours going into the overnight period as to whether, officials in Louisiana think it's worth canceling school either tomorrow or for Wednesday. I would imagine that those decisions are being made a little more earnestly in Mississippi and Alabama right now, but I haven't found any information.
All right, thanks very much for that. Who else was speaking there? I thought I heard someone.
Just me.
Go ahead.
I see. I mean, I do think the threat from this storm, I don't really know what exactly. I imagine the schools in the New Orleans area might eventually be canceled.
I was going to say, usually when an area is under a tropical storm warning, the day of the storm's closest approach, they usually close down as a safety precaution.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
We've got several new severe thunderstorm warnings.
Tell us about it. What's going on?
There's one that's about to move out of Florida into Mississippi, I believe. There's actually 2 warnings there, so that one might be an extension.
And just a note on the poll right now, will Helene form this week? 87% of you now say yes. You can take part in that poll on the community tab on the Force 13 YouTube channel. We'll run through some of those comments at the end as well. The ones that we
link is there in the chat right now for anyone that wants to vote.
Indeed. And yeah, that's that. Do you think Florence is going to go out to sea? We can't conclude anything.
For everyone new here, because I know a lot of people come in and out during the hours, it's a wait and see thing because we're still so far out that long range you can't really say anything for certain at this point. It's more something that we say come back to in 4 or 5 days and we'll have something real to talk about with it.
Or in the interim, who knows?
But too uncertain to make any claims right now. We've found a lot of articles across the internet saying that it's going to be like a mega storm that hits Florida on 9/11, but obviously the odds of that are
no. They were talking about the East
low.
Coast. Yeah, well, all right.
Yeah, none of those should be believed.
Let's just take a look at what Leighton's showing us now. More of those severe thunderstorm warnings on the Big Bend of Florida.
One of them's moving out of Georgia into Florida. One's moving out of Georgia into Alabama. There's one that's been extended in the Tallahassee area that might actually pass over Tallahassee. No point showing the center of I wish I'd stop saying Alberto. Gordon. because it's between radar sites. That eastern band, I could probably switch back to Miami and show. There's a band still moving through the Everglades, just northwest of there now. More banding over near the Miami, near western, that general area.
How is the Miami area looking? Because they're still under a flood advisory.
It looks like it's got another wave of light rain looking at the radar to come in. Maybe this
Looks like it's
band off.
mostly over on the east coast at least.
Looks like it. There's this band, this feeder band here, that might pass through, but
On satellite looks more like a periphery band, to be honest.
yeah.
But usually they can give a little short sting as well, can't they?
Yeah, they can.
I know we're approaching the end of the stream right now, so I'm wondering if you guys want to take one last look over at the computer models quickly.
If there's anything you think we should take a look at.
Yeah, it's just there's a lot of new people that come in and out through the hour, so thinking why not do it. Start off here. Turn on the screen share for us first. We're going to start off with, this is the GFS run from 12Z. 18Z comes out in a couple hours. You can see Florence right here. And the GFS through the past couple days has had very bad problems initializing Gordon. So you're not really going to see much of it on this. But we'll start it up. And you'll see, unlike most models, it actually intensifies Florence into a hurricane despite the hostile conditions it's in. And that's why you'll see this model run at least take it further out to sea than what we've seen from other models. They keep it weaker, and that allows it to be pushed further west. But it even intensifies it towards the end of the run as it continues to move north. It has it as a Category 2 at that point. But once we get out to about 7 days or past 5 days, that's when things get really uncertain. Just for an example, last night the GFS had it making landfall all the way up. Like, it got it pretty close to Massachusetts, and now it's east of Bermuda. So big shifts happen like this. And then just for Gordon, you'll see it pop up a little bit as a really weak swirl in the GFS, not doing much.
That there is the kind of scenario I would expect with Florence.
Yeah, I wouldn't be that surprised. It really depends on whether or not dry air and shear takes its toll on it. It hasn't so far.
It looks like it gets picked up by maybe a front there or something.
Maybe, but that's the difference with the European, and I'll pull that up right now.
Right. Yes.
And we'll go here just to show anomalies. Here's Florence at 0, and we'll go a day out. Now you can see Gordon here as well, and Florence is still here, moving west-northwest. The big difference is that the Euro drastically weakens Florence into almost nothing. It almost dissipates it at day 3.
Yes.
And you have a really strong area of high pressure blocking it from the north. And then this is day 5. You'll see this is where the GFS picks it up with this low pressure, but the Euro brings in this blocking high from Canada, a really strong one, to really block it from moving out to sea as it intensifies. And then once you get to a week out, it starts moving westward. But
oh, crikey.
once you get past 5 days, you can't really say anything for certain. But right now, Euro has a weaker system that tries to get
difference is as well, Euro predicts 2 other significant systems,
true.
and the GFS
it picks
has
up
nada.
2 other waves as well. And it also tries to develop a subtropical system by the Azores as well.
I'm not so sure.
The Euro's becoming the new CMC.
Wait, don't rub my line from earlier, please.
I mean, it could be possible for September.
Yeah, definitely. If
But
we're
it's
looking at a 1996 scenario, which was one of the analogues before the start of the season, you might expect something like this.
Potentially. And this system, the first wave here that you see develop at 120 hours from the Earth, this is 92L, 1040 for 48 and 120 hours. And this is a separate wave that comes out behind it, that it develops pretty quickly as well as a stronger system. But that's it for what you're going to see with the models right now, and you can pull up some other imagery now, I guess.
Well, I did want to show another view of this chart showing Gordon as it appears from these models. A little bit out of date with the HWRF at least, 'cause it's not calling for a Category 2 anymore, but I just wanted everyone to be familiar with the expected track. You can see that most of the models calling for a Mississippi landfall, except the HMON, which has it just over in Louisiana, possibly directly over New Orleans, although the HMON has it a very weak system, so barely any stronger than it is right now, actually. As you can see, the GFS makes a mess of the forecast, and the HWRF, the strongest scenario, has it slightly further north. So the main concern points to me, when we look at this here, the Mississippi and Alabama coastline. Mobile, Alabama, 62% chance of tropical storm conditions. It's the highest along those states right now. And there's Norman. I was trying to find Florence, but that's Norman. You can see there again, one or two models predicting a third peak for Norman later on in its life.
They don't want to give up, do they?
And with regards to Florence, there it is. Interesting to note that HWRF and HMON take it further north than the GFS, and I assume the Euro as well.
Yeah, the Euro is the southern... I think at this point, the Euro stays in line with the GFS and the CTCX, but after that point, it moves it significantly further westward because it has a weaker system than these two.
I'm just going to try and find some more model outlooks so I can present my point a little bit better again. In the meantime, is there anything anyone would like to slot in here just before, because we're running out of time?
Just want to make sure people in the area is being impacted right now. I know we have a few viewers that have been talking in the chat from southern Florida, and then to anyone else that's in Louisiana, Alabama, Mississippi, to make sure to have your preparations done hopefully by tomorrow, as the system's moving pretty quickly, so it's going to be approached by 2 days from now. And make sure that you stay safe, don't do anything rash. I know we saw on some cams earlier today, there are some few people out right now in southern Florida. I actually just saw someone in the water there.
Really?
So don't do anything like that, because rip currents, it can be something really dangerous and fully underwater. You want to make sure you stay safe and make sure you're thinking wisely in these situations.
Here it is. One particular look that I wanted to show here as well. These are ensembles of quite a few different models here. CMC taking it at Cape Cod by the looks of things. Wonderful. That's Florence. But that is a rank outlier, as you can see. And people are going to cherry pick these outliers to the west because it's closer to the US. But as you can see, the bulk, pretty much all of them, except 4, take it east of Bermuda. I don't know how many are in this, but 4 looks like a very small percentage compared to all the others. And most of them take the storm out towards the east. However, as it reaches a sort of the same latitude as Bermuda, there is a lot of uncertainty with the models that spreads out there, and quite a lot of stalling by a few of those ensemble members. It could be one of those that gets trapped.
Yeah, I know there's certain runs the GFS, especially ones from a couple days ago,
yeah, it could get trapped.
Before they moved west and back east again, they showed it stalling out for a couple days at the latitude of Bermuda before moving out out to sea for good. So models might be hinting at trying that again. I think the latest GFS run did something like it for maybe a little bit. It tries to let the high pressure get in front of it and slow it down for a little bit, but it seems to push through because the GFS has it as a much stronger storm than the other models have.
Leighton, any observations from the radar?
There's not really much that can be made of it at the moment. It's mostly kind of slight at the moment. But that... it's...
Struggling with the signal there. That's not working at all right now. But here you can see again a hybrid image here of the satellite, the visible along with that radar. And as you can see, the center just offshore I do wonder whether the eye feature is being stretched a little bit. It's very difficult to tell since it isn't in the proper radar area.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I don't know why my internet's so crap. Yeah, but it's kind of hard to tell what it's doing at the moment because half the eye is between the radar sites, so you can't really see what's going on in the inner core. But the trough to the north of it's very active because obviously it's putting that moisture from Gordon. Tropical moisture is very tropical moisture. Tropical air is very moist, obviously. So that's obviously making the trough to the north more active.
Something that's becoming quite distinctive now is a gap between bands. You know, northern area there that's over Tampa and beyond, and the southern area, and a massive dry slot in between.
I'll pull up some IR so we can get a quick look at that with screen share. Here it is. And you're right, there is a pretty significant dry slot. Maybe the storm's trying to center itself more and let go of that band. It's hard to tell at this point, though, whether or not it's or come back together. But the core of the system is still just off the western coast of Florida, so most of the convection is still southeast and north of it. We don't really have a ton of convection on the western side yet, although it looks like it's trying to consolidate it there a little bit in a smaller core.
Alright, Hank is back with us again right now. I just want to allow him to provide us a little bit of input because we are running low on time. If you wish.
To see, I just kind of popped in to see how the stream was going, but I guess I will. Yeah, Gordon, looking better. Obviously, you guys have heard that in the past couple hours. If you're in the area of projected landfall between central Louisiana and basically over to Destin, you should be paying very close attention to this storm because it's easily possible that it could be surpassing expectations, already is surpassing expectations. And if you're worried about Florence, don't be, because it's very far out into the future. I know the latest alarmist, but don't pay too much attention to that because A, that's literally 10 days out. It's just, I mean, literally Florence is located in the middle of the Atlantic, in the middle of nowhere, and the skill we have out there is pretty much none when it comes to going out 10 days, so don't pay too much attention to that.
That is true. It's probably going to be very far away. What did you make of this? How would you describe the center of Gordon right now? This feature that's appeared on radar looking like an eye, looked very good for a while. It's not actually an eye, but what have you made of it recently?
Oh, yeah.
I think we've lost communications.
I mean, it's interesting to see just because it shows signs of organization.
Especially when the satellite imagery starts catching up to the radar appearance.
As it is doing.
Whether or not it holds out is what we should really be looking for, rather than just talking about what's held out for maybe an hour or so at this point.
Alright then, well, I think that's our cue to finish up here at Force 13 HQ, and it's been a very fascinating 3 hours to watch what Gordon's been up to. I'd like to thank the team for their hard work today, and maybe more will be required over the next few days. I think it's almost certain that it will be, and we certainly applaud their work, as well as the viewers who take part all the time too. Thanks very much for watching tonight. Who knows when we'll be back. It's pretty much play it by ear as the situation calls. So I'm not entirely sure when we will be back on here on a live stream, but rest assured there'll be plenty of updates on the channel throughout the later part of today into tonight on not only Gordon but on Jebi as well, and maybe the other systems too if there's time in between. But you can also follow Force 13 on our social outlets, Facebook and Twitter. Search Force 13 all in text, and you can also add my personal account on Discord, Fool13, at extension 9094. And if you scroll down a little bit on the community tab of our channel, you'll be able to find the handy Discord link to our public server, which has been public for about 48 hours now. It certainly gives you an eye-opening insight onto what everyone else is thinking about the current storm situation. But from now, we're throwing it back to you. Good night, and we'll see you again soon.